Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Deckers goes for Hutchinson, and he's got it. Touchdown. There are no flags, and Iowa State has the lead.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Williams rolls. Williams rifles. Touchdown, Jordan Addison. The diving crab, and USC marches down the field for 6.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Really good job there. Harmon out to the end zone, and Jamal Banks has it. Touchdown.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Well play of this drive. 2nd and 7 from the 9. His rush looks to the end zone, tosses it, and it's caught by Noah Brown for the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports on this Wednesday afternoon. Well, we're going to hear from former Iowa State captain, 2 years of captain, Ryan Harklau, who's now their sideline reporter, former Iowa State defensive lineman on the Cyclones as they get ready for their game coming up with Baylor on Saturday at 11 o'clock. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. We have everybody here today, Emery, Levi, Jack Garrett, and also Jacob in the studio behind the scenes, our sponsors who help us do this and have all of this every single day, and you who watch and listen to us as well. The chat room's already flying by. Here is a tweet from Ross Dellinger earlier today, SI.com, and this is rather interesting. Remember when what many of our guests have said, and leave that up, Garrett, for a little bit, please, how the NFL has basically taken away almost the entire month of December from college football. So how do you battle that? You surely can't compete with them. They probably will eventually move that national championship game away from Monday night because the NFL playoffs get all the attention. How about this idea? The commissioners, the NCAA commissioners proposing a 365-day football calendar and calling, now this doesn't mean it's going to happen, but they'll discuss it even more, maybe vote on it, an earlier start to the season. Shift up the bowls, pushes back early signing date, permits off-campus contact with juniors, creates new dead periods per documents obtained by SI now.
I think it's going to be necessary when you expand the playoff and you want to find a way to highlight what you're doing there against the NFL. You've already let them take over Saturdays in December for the NFL playoffs. So you've kind of lost that day unless you want to counter program at different times of the day, which may not be the wisest thing to do. So you need to find a way to own what you can in December and own what you can throughout the year. So pushing up the calendar and making it also probably more practical and realistic for the function of college football is necessary, more so than it would be groundbreaking because, you know, there's so many things that have happened. You just have to accommodate for it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot to unpack from it. It's not just simple, oh, let's just start earlier and everything stays the same. I mean, there's a lot that would change as a result of this. The week 0 part of this, opening that up to more teams is interesting. And something's going to have to give because even though you've got the month of December to spread out your bowl games, if you're going to have an expanded playoff, you're going to have some room to fit some stuff in. You can't just let's just start a week earlier and everything stays the same. No, there's going to be some other twists to it. So this is a proposal. This is by no means finished. I'm sure there's some tweaking still left to do. I'm not at all opposed to an earlier start. I do think it was kind of funky to have a week 0 and it's like an unofficial beginning and you have 14 games or whatever it was, 14 teams or 14 games. And it's like nobody's really acknowledging you're acknowledging college football starts, but we're all saying it's not really official until the next week. Is just kind of weird to me. So yeah, just going ahead and bumping that up for everybody seems to make some sense. But yeah, I mean, how is the playoff calendar, involved in this? I do like the idea that you maybe have some more breathing room for teams. You're not just on this grind of 14 games and 15 weeks of the regular season. You'd have, I think, an extra open week. So I think that could potentially be good for teams. And that would also address the health aspect of, what I think is going to be a major question when you start talking about all the money that's going to be flowing and the expanded playoffs and all the stuff for the athletes. I think, you're probably going to want to give them, if they're playing more football, or some teams are, a little bit more breathing room as well to heal up and whatnot. So I think that would be beneficial. But, need to see more of kind of every in and out of this thing.
I got a question. We hear about this playoff going to 12, whenever that happens. We're talking about 4 extra games. It's 1 week. And so it's not like there's 16 new games. There's 4 new games. Now, again, 4 teams get a bye, it's a bye. It's basically is a bye, not an off week. It's a bye because you're advancing. But it's not like there's a full schedule. There's 4 new games. I think they could figure it out. And also, please don't use week 0. The state of Texas did that in high school football for, Garrett, ever?
Yeah, it's
ever.
been a while.
The games that were played in late August, they called them week 0. Call it week 1. And then it's week 2. And week 0, I think earlier this year I even heard that in college football, that Nebraska-Northwestern game.
That was week 0.
Yeah, and just week 1.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. That's the unofficial start that they never really said, this is the official start. And I just said there's, a handful of games being played. And it's like college football's back, but not really. Not till next week. And that's silly. And that's what I was saying, is it was silly to have that to be officially the start and not really take advantage of that. I don't know why. Don't mind that they're playing games in Ireland. Let's not make a huge deal out of this. Let's wait till next week when everybody else is playing. That doesn't make sense. And my thing with the playoff is, it's 4 additional games, but I think Dellinger pointed out in his piece, and I've seen some other scuttlebutt about it, is, look at the month of December. What's the first week? You got conference championship games. What's after that? You got either
Army,
bowl
Navy.
prep or you got, playoff prep or whatever, and now you're going to add some more games to it. Now, granted, it's only a couple more games in the long run for a handful of teams, but that's a tight turnaround. There's no give. You start in June or July or whatever. You go full bore basically all the way to August. Then you really get going. Then you go on all this travel. Now you're going to have expanded conferences where you're not just traveling anymore to the state over. Now you got USC going to Michigan for conference games, Then it's full bore, 14 out of the 15 weeks you're playing a game, or is that right? Yeah, 14 out of 15. And then you have 1 break in all of that. You have 1 week to catch your breath, and then conference championship games for those who are lucky, and then turn around and there's bowl games right then. So I just think that, if you can create a little bit more freedom of movement within that schedule and a little bit more of a breather, even if it's just a slight pocket, I think that's beneficial to spread out the schedule a little bit more, as opposed to just trying to cram it all in this September through December, and we got to get it all done in this time frame. If you want to be the big bad sport that you appear you want to be, I think you're going to have to do more of a year-round concept.
All right, Chris, how does this affect the playoff expansion, affect bowl games? Listen, there's 4 new games. There's 7 games. 4, 2, there's 4 and then 2 and then 1. And it's the same thing. Am I right here?
Yeah, because they will.
So there's 7 games.
They're home sites for
They'll
the first
rotate them around, and certain ones will still be a part of it. Go ahead.
Well, they're going to move the bowl games up under this proposal by a week.
Yeah, and so bowls are still going to get the other bowls that are not a part of the playoff games, the 7 games. They'll still have their thing and their sponsors and Maybe they'll become important again. I don't know, because it seems like there's just too many bowl games, unless you're a team that hasn't been to one in a while, and it's great to get back into it.
I'd like to piggyback off of too many bowl games. So, Chris, I will answer your question with a question. Who gives a crap what happens to the Popeyes Bahama Bowl?
You know who does, though, Paul?
Those teams, but like...
Yeah, but if you're Baylor in 2010, and you have not been to a bowl game in 16 years, and remember the excitement when they clinched a win against Kansas State that made them bowl eligible. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, it was joyous.
I don't pretend like they weren't celebrating a holiday bowl around here a few years ago as though it was the freaking national championship game.
I mean, you could hear the locker room out of state.
I'm thinking about teams like that, or SMU after so many years.
The majority of college football.
But if they still play it, who gives a crap where it is? Like, that's my thing. If they're still going to play the game, how is it going to suffer from no one being able to go when you're fans, or just the teams being there? If they're still getting to play in the game, who cares if it's on December 7th or December 25th?
Well,
who cares?
They also then
they won't suffer.
They buttonholed like this 1 week or so. They do need to spread those out and play them immediately right after maybe the championship games in early December. I don't know.
As for the questions about who cares, I mean, the NFL has a whole show about their schedule release. I think it's kind of silly, but there's guys out there and gals out there that care about who their November opponents are and when they are and where they are and all of that. And look, I'm not Mr. Bowl Game. I don't care about the Boca Raton Bowl. It's on at like 3 o'clock here. It's silly. It doesn't feel right at all. It feels disjointed to be a part of the bowl schedule. But, hey, for those teams that are in the Boca Raton Bowl, that might be a big deal for them. And if we don't care, that's fine, but the fan bases do care.
So do the sponsors.
And so do and I agree. There's too many bowl games. So how do they suffer? Perhaps they get shaved a little bit, and that wouldn't be a bad thing. But suffer other than that, I think it's just simply a move on the calendar. I don't think it's a suffering. Like, to Paul's point, I agree. There's no suffering here. But there might be, perhaps a dialing back of a couple games since you'll have more teams in the playoff. But, I think pretty much that will remain sort of status quo. You might just see games starting like the week right after the regular season wraps, as opposed to a little bit of a buffer period.
You get extra. You know who else cares? Not just the programs if they break a bowl streak or whatever. There are like 15 extra practices.
Here you go. And another proposed change.
So there's a lot of reasons. Yeah, there's a
bowl
lot of
games would be permitted to start the second Saturday in December a week earlier than normal.
Yeah,
and that's,
and here's the other thing I should say that.
And I'm not saying I watch them.
No,
I'm
the bowl games will all benefit if college football gets behind and says, how do we own December?
Yeah.
Well, you can, starting in that second Saturday, you can play a game on Saturday, you can play a game on Monday, you can play a game on Tuesday, you can play a game on Wednesday, and just go straight through the month. And every day of December and the early part of January, there's a college football game.
Yeah. Dennis, by the way, makes this comment. Does the panel, maybe it's even us, but the panel that's putting together the college football playoff, do they understand that campuses are pretty much unpopulated for majority of December?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It really is a great question because, we just talk about it as though it's like a game in October and everybody's just going to – I mean, like if there was a playoff game in Ames, Iowa, I know everybody would show up. But I think, you could probably say that pretty much anywhere except for L.A. maybe, that if there's a playoff game, at least early on, the uniqueness of that, I think the students are coming back for that bad boy, or they're sticking around campus. Like, I knew plenty of people that would just stick around campus because of their family situation or they live too far away or whatever that may be. I know you won't have enough that necessarily do that, but I think, who are we talking about hosting games? We're not talking about, like, Charleston Southern probably hosting games or Coastal Carolina or teams like that.
You're thinking about maybe Wisconsin or...
And I think those fan bases are big enough that they're going to bring enough people to watch an on-campus playoff game against another big banger of a team. Like, I think you'll be fine there.
Could be Austin, could be Waco, could be Tuscaloosa.
But it's a great question because there is a mass exodus around that holiday period where about 20,000 or tens of thousands, depending on what town you're talking about, just disappear for about a month. So that's an interesting question on the timing.
My question on whether it will work in certain towns would be if you play your rivalry game after Thanksgiving, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Is your stadium sold out for that rivalry game? So, like when Nebraska and Oklahoma played that game.
We're not supposed to bring them up anymore.
No, but when they played that game, were the students back? Did they come back for that game, or did they stay home eating turkey?
No, that place was packed. Yeah,
they
whether
came
it's
back.
in Norman or Lincoln.
So, if the game matters, It's not like you're playing your non-conference game after then. You're playing a playoff game. So if you're playing a first-round playoff game and it's Michigan versus Miami in the big house is going to be full.
Yeah.
Now,
maybe not in Miami, though.
If it's Michigan versus Miami in Miami, maybe that would be the one thing to get them full.
From Mike, I lived in a city with a bowl game for 3.5 years. The businesses around the stadium for the famous Idaho Potato Bowl in Boise brings in a bunch of money for that week. So there really are reasons, and you may look at the stands and there's 22,000 instead of what would be, but I think every bowl game, whether it's players or programs or sponsors or whoever, even fan bases, but the part about, will I watch them all? No, there was a time I did, back when there was 1/3 the number of bowl games.
I think we can all agree that it's gotten watered down. But, it got watered down when you started adding like the Boca Raton Bowl, and then you look at the first year, and it felt like there's 35 people there, and they just like stumbled upon a football game. They didn't even realize it was there. That's kind of what it felt like from what I remember. But as much as it got watered down a little bit, again, maybe they shave a couple of them off or a couple go to the wayside. But you have an excellent point. Like for these bowl organizers and whatnot, yeah, some of it can be viewed as just basically a money grab, I think, for some of them. But for others, yeah, it's a big pipeline for the community to pump some money into, Boise, Idaho, or to, I was about to say Las Vegas, not that they really need help, but you get the point of these bowl games.
If Miami hosted Michigan, as David M. said, Michiganders have a chance to go Miami in December, that place would be filled.
Yep.
Also from... let's see.
I think that's going to be so cool.
Remember that TCU, when they played in the Rose Bowl, big boy, this is it. That's a massive house. They were there in full force for a game like that. We've seen Baylor do that. Not all. They're a small private school, 17,000 or 20,000 students. There are some that eventually you won't run out of gas just because of numbers. So I don't, the point is they're trying to look at changing the schedule, moving up games a week ahead of time. I just don't want them to call it week 0. Just call it the opening weekend of college football. And they're also looking at trying to find a way to rediscover some opportunities in the month of December. To me, if there are 4 games, quarterfinal round games, I don't care when they're playing, I'm going to find them. Whether it's a team I like or a team I cover or just 8 other teams, I'm going to find that. That's important enough for me to watch the game. Playoff games in the NFL, there are some that to me are like, okay, I find them, I watch them, and I think the same thing would happen with the quarterfinal round games in college football. So that's from Ross Dellinger today. Much more if you want to go to SI.com with that.
I think that those on-campus playoff games, at least at the beginning of this expansion, is going to be the coolest part of this by far. Ohio State might whoop the mess out of Oregon State and Columbus in week, 1 of the playoffs or whatever, but I think it's going to be so freaking cool to see that. I do hope that, you do get a nice mix of, yes, you have your home field advantage, but it is treated almost too like a bowl game in some ways. Like the home team has the advantage, but not 95-5, you know what I mean? Because that does feel like you'd want a good little back and forth, but I think that's going to be way cooler than just your generic bowl spot that we see the same 5 places over and over and over again. We'll see them still. We'll see them in the next round, so they're not going away. But, yeah, this also does, too. That's going to be awesome. But this also does, too, have a lot to do with recruiting and opening up the windows and all of that as well. That's always a part of these underlying decisions is that lifeblood aspect of the game, which is recruiting.
Ryan Harklau will join us, sideline reporter again at 3:40. Today we drop in with Ryan Abraham. He covers USC. They've done kind of what they're supposed to do, get tested, you think, this weekend? I don't know, with Oregon State. Chris Lowe from ESPN.com had a story yesterday about Greg Sankey and what he hopes and was discussing the value for all of college football. He basically made a point, and I'm going to put the quote up. I'm going to get that to you, Garrett, where, listen, yeah, we want to win, and we kind of enjoy winning all the national championships. And it wasn't arrogant. Sometimes you could perceive it that way, but it wasn't. He goes, but we understand that it's important to have the entire country engaged. Remember, he's not the one that put together the alliance, although people thought they were about to gobble up college football. So we'll have Chris on. He wrote an article about that at 4:20. Connor O'Neill on Wake Forest. They play Clemson. Matt Campbell, a couple of 3 or 4 comments from him from his presser on Monday. We'll have that at 5, and John Machota will be on with us at 5:30. Paul's Top 5 at 5:55. We're on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports, and tonight at 10:30, the Sports Tonight show that we have is on the CW channel. And so all of that is where we are. Monterey Baldwin, the young talented receiver for Baylor, I am one that on occasion, if a player is about to make a decision, although we let Grayson and Craig and Colt and Brian, all of them, they do an incredible job of following recruiting. But Monterey Baldwin, Paula sent this to me, blessed, let's get back at it. Now, that's the wide receiver for Baylor, who was out after the first half of Brigham Young and missed last week's game in their win against Texas State. There's been questions, and Dave Aranda mentioned that they felt like there's a chance he gets back. So that was Monterey Baldwin today. And today, I think, is about the time when you try to know if a player is going to be available for the weekend. I'm not saying Baylor's confirmed that or not, but that's a pretty good note right there from Monterey
To me, that means
Baldwin.
at least he's going to try and practice full tilt today. Now, does that mean that he plays against Iowa State? They might still decide he's not ready to go. And the other thing about it is, remember, Monterey Baldwin is a track guy. You know, he's a burner.
Tightly wound.
So, you know, if there gets a grain of sand in that little microchip there, sometimes you hold them out for a little bit longer so they get right. But it's good to see that he's saying that he's, you know, let's get back at it because they need him.
Well, that means to me that he probably, I'm assuming, probably got good results on the head tests, considering he was one of the concussion guys, right?
It was a hip, wasn't he? He was limping off. Yeah, I thought he was limping off.
Okay,
with his hip,
I thought he was involved in that head injuries group, so maybe I'm wrong there. I know that was Tay McWilliams and also Ben Sims. I thought that they were all in that same group, the way Aranda made it sound. But, yeah, if it was his hip instead, then that's cool. But, I figured it was the head injury and that he might have passed those tests. But either way, yeah, they could use him. I think that he's a good explosive player. I do think he's been a little bit thrown out there as though he's already a star in some ways by some people of like, yeah, I get the potential and what he can do. And I know that's probably most of what people are speaking to, but sometimes I feel like he's talked about as he's just like this bona fide, undoubted number one wide receiver. And I don't think he's proved that in any way, shape, or form. Like, not even close to have been proved that. And I don't mean that as a knock on Monterey. I just mean that more as a knock on kind of where he's placed. Like, he needs to get to that point, I think, before we start talking about him as like the number one wide receiver.
Yeah.
That's gotten a little bit, that chatter started a little bit too early for me, but he can be that. I think he's got the talent to be that type of a weapon for them, but he still needs to show that over the long haul. And, you know, so far this year, he's played, 1.5 games basically. So, you know, hopefully he is back and can start to show that on a consistent basis.
By the way, the 214, exactly right. There are 11 games in the playoff. 4, 2, and then 1. You have 4 in the 8 teams that are the quarterfinals. The first round, and then you'll have those 4 winners play the 4 who sit back and relax. That's 4 more. Then you get to the 2 semifinal games and the championship game. So there are 4 extra games in that tournament. Thank you for clarifying that. Also, today on the text line from the 515, one note after 9/11, the Iowa State game was the final game of the season for each team after it was rescheduled. Ames, Iowa was packed. And yes, it was after Thanksgiving. And I would think that a place like Ames or Manhattan or places like that will be just fine. The latest team in that rivalry repeated, Iowa State won by 3. Of course, was earlier in this year. Now, a lot of you in the text line, thank you very much. Someone asked, I think Steve the Frog fan, about have we changed things up. We changed our system of what we do with the text line. It's the same number. And we see your text, 254-339-1122. So that's that, with much to get to during today's show. Now, want to break here and come back with Greg Sankey?
Sure.
Not with him, but a couple of things that he said. Chris Lowe will break that down, but I think it's important enough for us to discuss it, of what he said to Chris Lowe, and then Chris will come back with that as he wrote the article. Also, the chat room. Here we go, 254-339-1122. Also, again, 365 Sports, and we're back in a moment.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, behind the bank, available on DoorDash. You can find out their cool promotions on Instagram. And look, if you're a whiskey fan like I am, a whiskey connoisseur, maybe, then you like locally sourced whiskeys, well, there's no better source of Texas-sourced whiskeys than Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Whether it's Balcones, Texas, or TX, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers, they've got them there. All the different varieties that those companies put out all the time. They've got a great selection. They've got great craft beers. I was walking through and seeing a lot of places throwing out their pumpkin beers and all that. Well, Riverman Liquor and Wine's been ahead of that game forever. That's what they do. Always turning the roster of those beers. So you're going to have your pumpkin beers and your Oktoberfest and all that out right now. They're always turning the roster. And then wintertime comes around, you're going to have your winter brews as well. That's what they do there. Speedy drive-through window. Great customer service. Riverman Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th, behind the bank, or find them on DoorDash.
If you're out looking for a great selection of new cars and trucks, then shop Allen Samuels in Waco. Because we have some of the best deals in Central Texas that will put you in a new vehicle and driving away with confidence. Save big this month on a new 2022 Dodge Charger GT and get $500 bonus cash with 2.9% for 72 months. Plus, first responders get an extra $500 off your purchase. Stop by today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Chris Lowe from ESPN, a senior writer, will join us in an hour. And his article, Wanting College Football to be Strong Nationally, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, optimistic about expanded playoff. We have all but excluded the West Coast and everything west of the Rockies, all but 2 years. We want college football to be strong nationally, and I think that's the responsibility we all have. Now, some of that is they haven't earned it. Some of it, there's only 4 spots to earn, and so they're not the only conference that's been left out, but that has been the case. And you know, California's a large population, no matter how rabid the fans are, and that's a large state to leave out of any interest in college football.
It is. I think Greg Sankey's an interesting character in the expansion wars in college football, in that here was a guy who, in the months before he got Texas and Oklahoma out from the Big 12 in secret, was working with that commissioner on an expanded playoff. So if he didn't want to expand the playoff, he wouldn't have been on that committee unless it was just some sort of, next level spycraft subterfuge to get everybody to look one way while he's doing something else. So he wanted an expanded playoff. He came up with the idea. He spent hours and days of his life working on this committee and coming up with ways to make it work. And then, everybody kind of thought that he was trying to pull the rug out from all of college football and make it kind of an SEC-only thing, which I never completely bought. I could see why you would think that, but to me, that's a large burden to put on yourself, other than just making sure that you are always going to be the king of the college football kingdom and the subject's the same. And I think that's really where he is. And wanting to be college football powerful nationally, he knows it's good. It'll be good for the SEC if Georgia beats USC in a national championship game. And people in California will watch and see his team maybe more than they would one of his teams more than they would in the past. So I don't think he's as nefarious as people think, but I can see why they think that, given there were 2 different things going on at a certain point last year.
Yeah, I think, the West Coast and west of the Rockies kind of left themselves out. I mean, Oregon got in and Washington got in when they had the chance to. So they were both early playoff teams. So they've had more representation than the state of Texas has.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would like to think that, Texas is just as, as a region and just kind of a hot spot as much as all the West Coast and Rockies. I mean, not saying one's better than the other, but I think they're both, highly significant, obviously. So I'm probably not the best person to comment on Greg Sankey or Kevin Warren talking about things in college football, because I just immediately look for the lie and look through where the real root of what they're trying to say is. And that's probably far too pessimistic for every single comment they make. But that's what I think about now, because of what's happened over the last year and a half is the same guys, the same main 2 guys talking about the best of college football and the betterment of college football and not leaving people out are the same ones that have created this entire situation with their 2 land grabs.
But Sankey did he not, larger numbers in the playoff? He did. Yeah.
But also with the SEC still benefiting from that greatly by being able to have a majority of the playoff, which they're still going to have. My point is, when you talk about West of the Rockies, what are you really talking about? You're talking, the Big Ten somewhat addressed that. They've gotten UCLA and USC. So they are acknowledging West of the Rockies. And we've heard all the little talk about, Oregon and Washington, all that. But is he talking about those schools because that's the schools that have the most people and the most eyeballs? Or is he talking about really Utah State or Oregon State or Washington State or San Diego State or any of those other schools? Like, that's where I'm kind of wondering you can kind of go both ways with it. Yeah, you've expanded it by adding the LA schools to the Big Ten now. But are you more talking about it deeper in that, you really do have the benefit of all of college football in mind, which means beyond just the big market programs?
Are you giving this at least one group of 5 spot for the top 6 highest rated conference champions because you really want San Diego State or Memphis or it's not going to be Cincinnati anymore.
SMU, Houston,
SMU to be in the playoff, or do you want them to shut up about it?
I would hope it's that they want them to be in there, and that's what I mean. Is like I hear his comments or I hear Kevin Warren, I'm just immediately like trying to sort through and figure out what they're really trying to say. And, I probably do that to just the most benign of comments. So I'm not the best person to probably comment on his comments there.
Do you have that, Garrett, the quote? This is another quote. Listen, I understand it's hard to trust anybody after what we've seen. At the same time, you can barely read that, but I have it here. I'm fine if we win the championship every year. But we have a responsibility to think about the game from a bigger picture. This is coming from the SEC commissioner. I want to win, and I'm not going to apologize for that, but I'm also going to challenge myself and us collectively to think about the big picture. He then said this: the beauty of going to 12 is you could have as many as 40 teams with a chance to get into the playoff entering the month of November.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Why does the NFL win? Why do they have every 8-8, 9-8, whatever they have almost, it seems like, other than 10 teams out of 32 have a chance to get in the playoffs in the last weekend of the year?
Well, yeah, unless you've completely...
He's talking about November.
Well, yeah, but at least you've completely fallen on your face in the NFL, then you've got a chance if you rally. The Cowboys a few years ago were 3-5, traded for Amari Cooper and won 7 games in a row. Those things can happen. Why did Major League Baseball expand? Because the only thing it ruined there was the trade deadline. Because teams that were, 4 games out of the wild card didn't go, okay, well, now there's another wild card, so you're not really 4 games out, you're 2 games out. So,
you mean to tell me that the Cowboys had an early season injury that could have derailed, but they didn't get screwed by just having one loss on the entire year and were basically eliminated? That certainly helps. Mm-hmm. Certainly helps that you don't have one blemish in maybe week 2 and you're already out of the grand scheme of things.
And that's why, and I am so adamant about this, and I know that it's changed now when they go to 12, but this is before that when I got into that rant about winning the conference championship should mean something. Now, there's still some asterisks to that, but that's why the Cowboys made the playoffs. They made the playoffs because they won the division or they earned it through a wild card. Teams that win a division are in, even if it's a horrible division. Like this year, who's going to win the division with the Texans and Titans and those? Colts?
All of us, Smokey.
Someone is, though. Someone in that division. Because you know what? There have also been times that division has also been blank strong and have probably had a team that's been left out, even though there are more playoff teams or more, I guess you could say, wild card teams than ever before. So it's 3:36. When we come back, he played for Iowa State, a captain for a couple of years. Ryan Harklau. He's the sideline reporter on Iowa State as they enter the game in the weekend with Baylor and Ames. 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, new incentives for the month of September. Ted Teague and his great staff always have something for you when it comes to cars, SUVs, vehicles, and, of course, their amazing Ram trucks. Right now, 2022 Wagoneer. Save big on Series 2 and 3 by getting the low APR of 2.9% for 72 months, plus you receive $3,500 in bonus cash. Or choose 0% for 72 months, plus first responders get an additional $500 as well. Drive away in the original American premium SUV. Meanwhile, you can pick the new 2022 Dodge Charger or Challenger. $500 retail bonus plus 2.9% financing for 72 months. First responders get an extra $500. And on top of that, the Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star. Values of $6,500 or get $1,750 in bonus cash. That's $1,750 and 2.9% for 72 months. Or you can go 0% for 72 months. All of that available. The incentives and the discounts. Ted Teague, the general manager, a great staff to help you look and find a car like they did for me. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck, it's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Ryan Harklau played at Iowa State, captain a couple of different years, was on a team that was as good as they've ever been in 2000, and also does their sideline work for Iowa State. They play Baylor Saturday, 11 o'clock in Ames. And Ryan joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Ryan, thank you very much. What's the temperature this week? Not like real temperature, but just the lead up and atmosphere around Ames for Iowa State Baylor.
Well, I would tell you they're excited, but it's more of a cautious optimism. You know, when you look at last year, there's a lot of high expectations with that football team, and while they were in every game and came to the wire in a lot of different games, the problem was we weren't winning this close game. So you come out of your preseason, you're 3-0, you're cautiously optimistic, but getting that confidence back as you walk into every game to win it, as a fan, you can just tell they're excited about the team, but I think they're really looking forward to see what, the measuring stick is coming this weekend with Baylor coming to town. And the fan base is really looking forward to this football game.
Ryan, and I know it's early, there's only a couple games, but did the confidence of this team change and was buoyed by finally shaking the Hawkeye monkey off their back?
I think if anything, they were a little frustrated by that game and how they played. And I'm talking about the players here, not the coaches. I mean, anytime you get a win in a hostile environment like that in a rivalry game, you'll take it any way you can get it. But at the same time, there was 5 turnovers in that game, what we would assume to be turnovers, 3 turnovers, 2 in the end zone, and then they had 2 block punts, Iowa State did. So, in essence, there was 5 turnovers in that game. If you don't do that to yourself and give the Hawkeyes a short-sided field the entire football game, that's probably a 24-7 game. And so I think that they were happy to get the win, but I would tell you, I rode back with the team on the buses, and it wasn't party central on there. If anything, it was lights out, and those guys were ready to get back to work. Again, they just knew they didn't perform at the level they need to win consistently throughout the Big 12.
Ryan, I was watching kind of the instant reaction to that game and seeing some Cyclones fans on my timeline just going nuts because it just seems like when the Cyhawk game happens, Iowa State special teams or just the craziest things happen where you just kind of, flummoxed by their performance in so many ways. What is it about that game where just kind of the worst seems to come out mistake-wise for Iowa State?
I don't know, and I don't really believe in jinxes, but I'm going to tell you right now, when that second punt got blocked, like, we're jinxed.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? It's frustrating. We lost a game last year to Iowa at home, and they had 173 yards of offense. And that's hard to do. You can't, that's only happened a couple of times in the last, 2,500 games or so on. There was some statistic on it, but it only happened like 2 or 3 times, and Iowa's won those games 2 of the 3 times. So they do make it ugly on you, but golly, I feel like we try to help them out every year in that game somehow. But we were able to get out of there with the win, which it did feel good. But again, the kids just felt like they could play at a higher level than they did that day.
In your opinion, you've seen what Matt Campbell's done. Expectations, of course, last year were huge. You mentioned that. In the year before, they played for the Big 12 title against Oklahoma. What has he done? Is the best word to use is stabilize or the consistency? How would you define that?
He has an identity of what he wants to be and what he wants his team to be. And I think that you guys actually get to see that down in Waco. I think it's very similar. These 2 coaches of any of the Big 12 remind me of each other more than anyone else on what they're trying to get done. And when you watch them on film, I had a chance to watch the BYU game, which that was an interesting. I didn't get a chance to see it the day of the game, but I watched it here this week, and wow. I mean, there's some opportunities for both teams to play, but you watch that game, and a lot of what Baylor is trying to do throughout that game feels like Iowa State playing a football game. So, again, I think that they know what their identity is, and they know what they want to be, and I think that they are worried about getting themselves better week to week, just like Baylor. I feel like that's what they're looking at. If they can improve just incrementally every single week, they can put a product on the field that will be competitive every single week and not throughout the Big 12 or, quite honestly, throughout the nation.
What do you think the biggest difference between Hunter Dekkers and Brock Purdy is?
Arm strength. It's not any question. And here's the thing about Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy broke every school record we had, was an outstanding quarterback, really accurate, and over the top. I mean, he's now the QB2 for the 49ers now as he moved up with Trey Lance's injury. So he's very talented. It's hard to say, hey, this kid's better. But the kid, what you will see from Hunter is this: he makes much quicker decisions. He gets the ball out of his hands really quick. If you've seen any of the games so far, he gets the ball out really quick and gives his receivers a chance to make plays. But his down the field arm strength is really special. Not just over Brock, but I would say he's a very high end thrower of the football throughout the nation. I think throughout the season, people will start picking up on him and what he's going to be someday.
Ryan, obviously losing Breece Hall was huge. They did, obviously return some big weapons, but Hall is in that group when you talk about Purdy and then the big exits. But Jarrell Brock, I mean, a guy who's not totally unfamiliar to people who have watched Iowa State over the years. I know it's kind of is it a group by committee? Is he kind of the lead bell cow? How would you describe their running back situation and how they've moved past the Breece Hall era?
Well, when we lost David Montgomery first, right, the starting running back for the Bears. And then we were like, what are we going to do now? And here comes this person named Breece Hall, who turned out to be an outstanding running back. And Jarrell was a 4-star running back recruit the same year that Breece came in. And so we didn't know who was going to start at that time, and Breece won the job and obviously earned it. Now is Jarrell's time, and he's playing outstanding football right now. But when you look at what's in that room, you will see us play 3 to 4 deep on Saturday against Baylor. There's going to be a freshman, I believe, that will come back. He got hurt in the first game. He tweaked the hamstring, I believe. Cartavius Norton. He probably is the next big time stable, a horse in the stable where he can do a lot of different things. But Jairell, he is the bell cow of this running back room. He does everything right. He works his rear off. He's a good leader, good person, and he gets you what you want. He puts that foot in the ground and goes north and south. And that is what they're looking for, is positive yards on the run game. No different than Baylor. When you watch them play, it looks very similar to watching what you guys are trying to get done there on offense.
This is the Spider-Man meme game. It's the two Spider-Men just pointed at each other. That's exactly very similar teams, like you said.
It is. You could swap uniforms at half, and they'd run back out. You wouldn't know. You just don't. They're trying to do the same thing. They line up a little different on defense, obviously, and play a little bit different defense. But there's actually a lot of more similarities amongst their defenses than there are, differences. I know you guys will have 4. Baylor have 4 up on the line of scrimmage, where Iowa State will be 3. But let's be honest, we have the 4th one up there. It's our outside linebacker. He's on the line of scrimmage most of the time anyway. So, again, when you look at these two teams, it's like a mirror image of each other, and they're both trying to do the same thing.
Ryan, how have you guys dealt with, as a fan base, as an institution, the constant rumors about Matt Campbell?
So it's a compliment, and it's better than not having your coach talked about. I would say that number one. I get why people want him. I've had the chance to get to know him over the last 5 years, and obviously the last 2, as I've done this radio opportunity with the team. And I get why people want him. He wants to make kids better and win games along the way, not win football games and hopefully make kids better. He has his priorities in check. And I think culture's become that word that everyone wants to use. But you don't know. You don't just automatically have it because you talk about it. You have to live it and believe it. And his foundation of his program is about improving his players and their personal lives as much as it is on the football field. And I get why people want that. And so the rumors are always going to come. If Notre Dame can't hold on to their coach and Oklahoma can't hold on to their coach, and you name it around the nation, everybody's coach is on the table. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think that'll ever go away. I don't know if the movement will be as big in the next couple of years because we don't know where this is all going to settle out, with the new conference realignments and TV deals. And I'm not sure coaches are going to want to jump, from that nice where they know what they have in their hand and go jump into something they don't know where it's going to end up here in the next 3 to 5 years with the new conference alignments and the playoffs and the TV deals coming.
So, Ryan, good defense on the Iowa State side of things. Well, we know that. Same thing for Baylor. Offense, you got Hunter Deckers and Jairell Brock, and obviously guys like Xavier Hutchinson. 2 blowout games in the close contest over Iowa where they clearly could have played better. After 3 games, we kind of know the strengths, I feel like, with Iowa State. What are maybe some of the things you still have questions about?
Special teams. We had 2 punts blocked against Iowa, and then last week against Ohio, we got a field goal block or an extra point. It was an extra point blocked at the end of the first half. And so when you look back to the Baylor game last year, we lost in that third quarter. You got a great punt returner. He was outstanding, but you have a punt return for a touchdown. And you look at the stats from last year's game, it was a 29-31 game. Obviously you won by 2 there. We had 479 yards of offense to Baylor's 282, and you lose a game. And again, it comes back to what you say with special teams. It's those plays. And I think that Baylor does have special teams, and we have to be prepared on Saturday to play great there, or we will put ourselves in a tough spot where it's going to be difficult to win if we don't perform on those teams.
The TCU Baylor series, the football series, is intense for a lot of reasons. Both of them are small private schools. TCU was left out of the Big 12, and then they came back, and Patterson and Briles, they just didn't like each other. And they were also competing for the same thing, the same players and recruits. Do you feel like Iowa State Baylor's becoming a pretty nice little rivalry because they're competing for that piece that has always been thought of as Oklahoma's and Texas?
I think that's absolutely the truth. And I'm going to tell you right now, in the championship game, there was Iowa State's cheering for Baylor. I think you all probably knew that. I think you want them to do well, just not against each other. And I think that, like you said, they're a mirror image of each other. But when they get together, it's gotten a little feisty in Ames a couple of years ago. I think that was 2019, where we had a couple players from each side kicked out of the game, David Montgomery being one of them. And, the players know, too. They know the intensity of that game. And this game is really impactful for the Big 12 as we go into the season. Obviously, you guys are picked to finish top or, top 2 or 3. And you're still in it. We just came out of the preseason. And for us, if we want to be that sleeper, we got to show up on Saturday and earn our right to be in the conversation for the Big 12 again. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be feisty on Saturday because I think all the players and the coaches absolutely know what's on the page on Saturday. And this is a huge football game, no different than it was last year. A 2-point game. And I think it gave Baylor a really nice momentum into the Big 12 season after you beat a team like that allowed you guys to go on a great run and have an awesome season throughout 2021.
I believe for Baylor, and I said this earlier this week, Brigham Young was a little bit like this. They won all those games at home last year. It's hard to win on the road. They have not done a very good job of it. And to me, this is kind of the difference between getting just into a bowl or being a part of the conversation when we get to mid to late November. Same thing perhaps as well for Iowa State. What was that like, Ryan, when Matt Campbell reached out to you? He wanted you, I know you're doing sidelines, but he wanted you to be much more a part of the program to help the players as they move on past football.
Yeah, so when he first got here, he brought about 10 to 15 of us back. And number one thing is how do you win here? How did you win? What was the magic sauce, if you will, in Ames when we were winning? We won, my senior year was 9-3 team. Because we won the Inside.com Bowl, had a lot of success. The number two, so then he wanted to talk to us. He goes, I want you to mentor our players. I don't want you to talk to him about football, if it's a D lineman. I don't want you talking to him about pass rush, alignment, or anything. I want you to talk to him about his career, his classes, his transition from college to a professional career, how to interview, how to prepare for an interview, how to talk to professors, how to prepare for tests, and coach them from their junior year into the transition into real life. And again, it goes back to, he doesn't just say this stuff. He has structure within his program that he's using the past players to help transition our athletes from, playing for him and being part of the program. He wants them to be a part of the program forever. And this mentorship program is built to do that, just to keep the cycle alive, where past players are going to help our current athletes transition out of sports into what they're going to do ultimately in the real world. And I think that's what really goes a long way with these players. Is they know he loves them. He cares about them. And that's a priority to him when he works with the athletes and their families.
Iowa State's become much more involved in being a part of the conversation in the Big 12 recently, but you were a part of a team that did something that's been known as the best year ever. I know that they would love to get to 10 wins, love to win a Big 12 title at some point, but what's it like to be a part of the team that everybody thinks is the best team ever in that program?
So we have the best record. I think this Fiesta Bowl team that won is probably the best team. And I know it's not my team, but we win 2020. And now look, this is a debate we could have in Ames for years, but I think that team was really talented. I think that's what made everyone so excited about 2021. It was what everything was coming back from that team. But to win 9 games in a program, you got to remember we won 1 game our freshman year. So we went from the laughing stock of the Big 12, and everyone's looking forward to seeing us, to, by our senior year, winning 9 games, 5, 6, 7 of us go to the NFL. And it started to change the culture where people are like, hey, you guys, you can get it done here. And so anyway, it's I don't know who the best team is. That's a good debate. I love what Coach Campbell's doing, where he has reloaded again. While last year wasn't perfect, they lost a lot of close games. But the good news is they start 3-0, and there's a lot of confidence in this team, and there's an opportunity again this year to do good things. And then the cupboards are full. It's not just the kids playing. When you look on a Saturday, they're going to probably play 22 to 23 guys on defense throughout that game, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. They're not just playing the starting 11. They're going to play a lot of kids. It's a pretty deep team, and I think that's why I believe the teams that are there now are much more talented and better than we were at the time we were 9-3.
Ryan, glad Nick Joe shared your number with me. Glad you could be a part of it. We'll have Nick on, in fact, tomorrow. He was at Baylor for a long time. Look forward to his memories. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
I enjoyed it, guys. I hope you have a great week, and we'll hopefully talk to you around Saturday.
Yes, sir. That's Ryan Harklau, from Iowa State, sideline reporter, former player, 2 years as a captain. That's pretty good. That's what you do. You know, you go from 2 wins, and eventually you get to 9. That's kind of what Rule did, 1, 7, and then, of course, the year that they played for the Big 12 title, and what Aranda from 2-7 to 12-2 is a huge jump. in 1 year with the circumstances of 2020. So when we come back, the 4 o'clock hour, including Ryan Abraham, he covers Southern Cal. They're doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, we didn't know, really, even though they were getting a lot of hype, and they've kind of backed it up, but now we'll start to get tested. He's next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace, just off of I-35 in Waco. And, man, we've got story after story about people who have been told, hey, we need to get an MRI, shoulder, knee, back, whatever. And they have been frozen, basically, with fear because it's $1,500, it's $2,000, and this is this, and this is that. If you need an MRI, if you have been told that there's something that hurts you, and your doctor wants to get another look at it or a different look at it, and they want to use an MRI, it's worth wherever you are to drive to Waco and around Texas or where you might be to get to Ideal MRI, because no matter what you hear, it's $497 or less every single time. We have told you story after story after story of people who have saved hundreds and in a couple of cases over $1,000 by going and using Ideal MRI. If your doctor suggested MRI, you then demand, set me up with IdealMRI.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel & Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel & Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel & Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the city of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed and kids club, 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Penix fires. Touchdown, Polk.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We went straight to Ryan Abraham when that USC-UCLA story popped back in July, and we've had him on many times to discuss USC, owner-publisher of USCfootball.com. He joins us on 365 Sports. Ryan, thank you. With Craig and Paul, I'm David Smoak. Have the Trojans been better than you thought they would be through 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's we talked a lot in the offseason because all kinds of crazy stuff happened. Hire Lincoln Riley, joined the Big Ten and all that. But they were actually looking really good on the field as well. I think defensively, it's still a work in progress. They've given up a lot of yards, but they've been very opportunistic. They've 26 tackles for loss through 3 games. They've forced 10 turnovers. So they're making the most of the opportunities when they get, especially when an opponent gets in the red zone. But really what's impressed me has been the offensive side of the ball. And, they hit the transfer portal hard, bringing guys like, Blitnikoff Award winner Jordan Addison and Caleb Williams. And they, the 2 of the best running backs in the Pac-12, Travis Dye and Austin Jones, joined the roster too, from Oregon and Stanford respectively. And man, they've just been clicking. And, they've the first 3 drives at least of every game, they've scored a touchdown just to start the game. So it's 21 points out of the gate in every game so far. And I just haven't expected that. I mean, it's not just that they have athletes making plays, but Lincoln Riley has a great scheme. They're scheming guys open. It's, last year it was basically throw to a triple covered Drake London, who's, playing for the Atlanta Falcons now. And that worked sometimes until he got hurt. But this is actually a competent offense with really good players running it. And that's why I think it's been so successful so far.
Could you make the argument that this week against Oregon State on the road is one of their 2 toughest games remaining for the season?
For sure. And I thought, this was one I circled from the beginning. Oregon State didn't lose at home last year, and they really put a beat down on USC in the Coliseum. It's crazy just the way they were able to run downhill. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be a tough test for sure. I don't think they have the defense really to kind of hang with USC, but they're a team that can run right at you. Chance Nolan has been really good so far this year, the quarterback for Oregon State. He was great against USC last year, but not really against anybody else. He's been good at, in all the games. They've already beat Fresno State. They've beat Boise State. So I think it's a legit team. Jonathan Smith has kind of built that up from the ground up. You remember he was the quarterback there back in 2000 when they had like Chad Ochocinco and they beat the heck out of Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. He's really got this team going in the right direction. So it's certainly one of the ones I circled, this one and at Utah. So if they get through this one, I mean, then you start talking about, okay, this could be I didn't think they could be like a 11-1 type of team, but if they beat Oregon State this weekend, I think that's certainly in the cards.
Ryan, you kind of ran down some of the transfers on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, we could go one by one with those names. I mean, all college football stars. For the hardcore fan and even the casual fan. In the case of Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison, let's start with those 2. Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison. A lot of fanfare, a lot of hype, a lot of expectations. What have you seen from your front row view through these first 3 games from those 2?
Yeah, starting with Addison. I mean, he came in late. He wasn't here in the spring. And they had a really good receiver room already, and they brought in transfers from Colorado, like Jerry Rice's son. They bring in a guy from Washington. They bring in Mario Williams from Oklahoma. And then you bring in the number one, the best returning receiver in the country. And you're like, well, how is this going to work? And he's fit in really well. It seems like the guys, everyone's respected him, and he's come out and played well. He had 5 touchdowns through the first 3 games, and he had a 6th one called back. It's just been, it was a 75-yard bomb. It would be a little screen pass that he breaks off and runs with. So he's done just about everything you could have asked. And Caleb Williams and him have got great chemistry together. Caleb Williams has just been incredible. I know there was been, some criticism the way he played last year, and he was a true freshman, only playing 8 games, but he came in and just took over the locker room, has won every press conference, every kind of media availability he's just been great at. And then when you see him on the field, just really efficient. Now, the last game against Fresno State, I think he had 12 incompletions, which was more than he had through the first 2 games. But when a game like that, when it's sort of a little clunky for him, the run game starts working. They had both 2 running backs go over 100 yards. So I think he's complemented this team well. He's been a good leader and just been able to find guys open. If he'll take off and run if he has to. Some USC had like a quarterback that could threaten with their legs in a while. So I think he's just done just about everything you could ask for him if you're a USC fan.
But he's been sacked 7 times, and I haven't gone. I was trying to go game by game. They've handled their business. Has that been any kind of an issue, or is that just okay? It's 2.5 times he's been sacked a game. Would you rather cut that down?
Yeah, like the last game, I think he was sacked 3 times, and USC lost their starting left tackle, and then their backup went out, and they had the 3rd string guy in there. And the guy and Lincoln Riley said, I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, I put the guy in a bad situation. It's like putting a kicker in for a 60-yard field goal to start his career. And I gave up a sack right away. And then there was another one later in the game where he kind of ran around a little, held the ball a little too long. I think in the first game against Rice, he had 68 yards rushing in that one and picked up chunks all the time. And I feel like that we went back in the archives for USC. We couldn't find a quarterback that ran for that many yards. Like Rodney Peete didn't back in the late 80s. So I'm not sure if USC had a quarterback that ran that much. And you kind of felt like they were going to back off of that a little bit. And so, maybe he would stay in the pocket a little longer than he would have liked and got sacked a couple more times. But I think overall, the offensive line has played pretty well. They should be healthy going to the Oregon State game. I think both of those left tackles are going to be back. But some of it's just, I think, Caleb Williams trying to figure out what he wants to be as far as a quarterback. He doesn't want to be known as a guy that just takes off and runs, but that can be really effective sometimes.
Well, they've only had two home games. One of them was Rice to open the season, and then Fresno State. But what's the fan buzz been like on game day at the Coliseum?
Yeah, the first game was like 100 and something degrees. It was just miserable in LA, and it's still a decent crowd. And then the Fresno State game, they had, I think, 67,000 or some people come. So it was not bad for a night game here. It's built up. I think we've just seen it in all of our shows and the content we put up. There's so much more interest right now than there was before. Just in the Clay Helton era, it got to the point where USC could sign a 5-star player, and then people was like, "Oh, Clay Helton's the coach; it doesn't matter." Now people are excited about anything, and I think they're excited to come to the Coliseum. They want to come out and see this team. So their next home game is another night one too. So we'll see how that does against Arizona State, who just fired their head coach. But there's been a lot more buzz and a lot more excitement from the fan base we've seen than really in the last 7-8 years.
Has there been much outcry about the TV coverage for this game being on Pac-12 Network? I've seen definitely on the Oregon State side of things some outcry and some people upset about the lack of mainstream coverage for what should be maybe one of the best games in the Pac this year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I think a lot of USC fans are like, see, this is why we're leaving because the Pac-12 sucks. It's something that happened. It's not like George Kliavkoff's fault, the commissioner. I mean, this was something that happened 10 years ago.
Right.
If you have for every non-conference home game, you have to have a game on a Pac-12 network. So USC has 3 non-conference home games this year. The Rice game was on Pac-12 network. They need 2 more. And then it's ESPN and Fox picking. And from my understanding is if USC does make some sort of run, they want to save their USC picks until later in the season. So even though it's a great matchup, 2 undefeated teams, I think the networks balked on it because they don't want to lose out an opportunity to get USC later on. And there's like a USC Colorado game, but that's already on a Friday, so that couldn't be on Pac-12 Network. It's already on FS1. So it's definitely unfortunate. I think the kind of inventory that the Pac-12 wanted on their network, I get why you wanted to do it, but when your distribution's terrible, then as soon as you get a game on the network, everyone's moaning and groaning. So yeah, it's tough. 6:30 p.m. game on the West Coast on the Pac-12 network. It's not going to get watched out, outside of the region, but it's definitely going to be a good game.
USC Colorado is going to be a bloodbath. Oh my gosh, that's going to be.
They're so terrible.
Oh man.
Ryan, why are they? They're not only terrible. They're not like boring and terrible. Like sometimes you can be bad, but an adventure, they're just bland.
Yeah, it's Carl Durrell, and you feel like he hadn't coached in college in like a decade, and he wasn't good when he coached in college. It just seems like the hire was kind of like what, and then they go to Minnesota last year and get shut out, and Minnesota, that was the only game that they actually scored a bunch of points. They fire their offensive coordinator. That's who Colorado hired, so that's what you're talking about. Like that's the kind of stuff that's going on there, and his buyout's really high. So I don't see this. Rick George, I think, is a really good AD, but he's in a tough spot over there. I don't know how they got locked into Carl Durrell this long, but agents always get their way, and now I don't think they can get out of it for a while. So I'm not expecting them to get better anytime soon.
You only saw the one game? It was Stanford, and this is the game. Is it at Oregon State or is it home?
On the road.
Okay. Has there been any, or will you even see that in the Pac-12? Any kind of bitterness about USC or UCLA leaving?
I think that you could at Stanford. I mean, at Stanford, it's just they don't care that much. So the fans don't care all that much. There was probably more USC fans there than Stanford fans. Oregon State, they would. Now, the problem is they're renovating Research Stadium, and half of it's gone. So there's only going to be like 26,000 people there. Probably still be loud, but I think when you go to Utah, there's going to be some animosity there, even though they're the newer, member of the Pac-12. But I think those are the kind of spots like. They're going to go to Tucson. I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal, but we'll see. I mean, but there's definitely some bitterness, and I think UCLA is a little different too because there's a lot of UCLA fans that don't want to go. But I think for the most part, USC fans are happy to get out of the Pac-12, and I don't think the rest of the fan base in the Pac-12 didn't like USC anyway, and this doesn't help that.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, going to Tucson, I mean, there's a faction in Tucson that is kind of thankful for USC and UCLA because it's given them an opportunity to complain about the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think they're openly trying to get to the Big 12. We'll see. Like, there's writers that cover the team that I've seen that's like, are they like campaigning to join the Big 12? But that's an exciting program, and they're to get the wins that they've got already. I think they've just been they're on the right trajectory with Jed Fish. That's exciting. Like you're talking about, they were 1-11 last year, but they weren't boring, and they were in all those games. Like Colorado's just not in games. So we'll see if Fish can get to a bowl game this year. It might be tough, but they're definitely on the right trajectory where Arizona State is going the other way. But I don't know if they can get there. Their schedule is really tough. I don't know. They didn't do themselves any favor with that schedule, but they're definitely on the up and up.
Ryan, do you feel or get a sense that there will be anyone else that the Big Ten makes sure is in the same time zone with USC and UCLA, or would USC and UCLA really want that?
I don't think USC wanted like Oregon coming. They had some battles, and I think USC is pretty happy to leave Oregon behind and just be like, Oregon was acting like they were the blue blood on the West Coast. That just wasn't the case. It just kind of proved it. So I don't think there was any, love lost there. If like the Cal Stanford or something would come, I don't think USC or UCLA would have a problem with that. That would probably be the best situation as far as travel and things like that. But with the playoff expansion, I'm not sure we're going to see any more movement right now. Every time you say that, teams jump ship and go somewhere else. But it seems like there's reasons to stay in the Big 12 or stay in the Pac-12 because you still have access to the playoffs now. So maybe this calms it down. But if it does, and there's still a chance, I guess UCLA could get, the regents could say you have to stay, and that would leave USC all alone in the Big Ten. That would be a lot tougher. I think you need your partner for sure. But if, I don't think they'd mind Washington coming, but I think they would have an issue with Oregon. And they wouldn't mind if the California schools came along. I just don't see that happening.
Ryan, good stuff as always. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. USCfootball.com. Inside Troy on Twitter. Ryan Abraham on Southern Cal, Oregon State, and on USC through 3 games under Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, Addison, and company. When we come back, Chris Lowe's the one who wrote the article on ESPN.com, Greg Sankey, saying that he thinks it's good for college football if they branch out and have more opportunities for everybody. We'll hear from him. He's next. Sick 'em, 365 Radio and 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, used to be, and you need to be. What does that mean? 1 out of every 3 to 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. That might be you. Maybe it's not. But if it is, you're lethargic, your energy's not the same, you don't sleep well, and you also have issues with your sex drive, ED, whatever that might be. If that's true, or you feel like you're one of those 3 men, 1 out of every 3 men, PettyClinicalOT.com, the website. Go there, top corner, phone number and email, tell them I sent you. And then Dr. Kent Petty and his staff will set you up for an appointment to have your blood done, your blood work done. He'll look at the results, and if your testosterone is too low, he will call you, contact you, and put you in a program to increase your testosterone level. If your testosterone is fine, he'll look at other parts of your blood work just to make sure. It's PettyClinicalOT.com.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to the water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
ESPN senior writer Chris Lowe joins us. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Wanting college football to be strong nationally, Greg Sankey in an article Chris was able to release on Tuesday. Chris, thanks for your time. Doesn't he seem to be the guy everyone thinks is the angry or mean person? And this seems like, at least in these quotes, that he understands the value of everybody involved?
Yeah, I think that's probably been the narrative, around the country, especially since the SEC's dominated the playoff for so long. Greg's thing is, the proposal that they worked up, and he was a big part of that over a year ago, was a 12-team playoff, which featured 6 automatic qualifiers for the top 6 conference champions. Now, mind you, that would not be automatically the 5 power conference champions. It would be the top 6 conference champions ranked in the committee's rankings, and then 6 at-large berths. So, he was on board with that, was a big part of putting that together a year ago, and then there was a lot of haggling, and they couldn't figure it out. So I think there's some frustration there with him that we're right back to where they were, which this could have been done maybe a year ago, and this whole process expedited to maybe have a playoff in 24. But, I think he understands that college football has got to be a national sport. It can't just be people in the Southwest and the South and the Midwest paying attention to it, that it's strongest, the sport across the board is strongest when you've got viewership and you've got interest all across the country.
Chris, it was kind of a weird, from outside perspective of Greg Sankey, there was this, you look at the guy and here he is on the playoff committee, like you mentioned. This is partly and largely his brainchild with the other guys on the committee. And then during that time, he gets Texas and Oklahoma out of the Big 12. So nobody really could see what his overall plan was. But was his position of no matter who comes into the league, I still want this playoff all along?
Oh, yeah. They started talking about this in 2000. In fact, I think there's an anecdote there in my story where former Florida coach and Tennessee athletic director Doug Dickey approached him at the Gator Bowl Hall of Fame in 2000 about this, and he said he was already thinking then that the right number was 12 because clearly the playoff was going to expand at some point. It was just a matter of was it going to go to 6, go to 8, and I think Greg always felt like 12 was the right number because you could involve more people. And when you think about it, he's right because the last few years in a 14 playoff, you get to November, the first week in November. At that point, there's really probably only about, 7, 8 teams that really invested, maybe not even that many. You go to 12, and as he points out, you might have 30 or 40 teams still invested in possibly having a chance to get into the playoff when you hit November. I think that's the part that appeals to him, and really I think appeals to most people in and around college football. And I think that the point he was making is, listen, if you're just looking at it from an SEC perspective, we don't care if we stay where we are. We go to 12. We've won championships. We've had 2 teams in a 4-team format. We're only going to have more at 12. If you look at the rankings over the last 4 or 5 years, more times than not, the SEC would have had probably 4 or 5 teams in. So I don't think he minds that. I don't think he minds the fact that there'll be more opportunity for SEC teams. But I think he also feels like that if you're going to make college football genuinely a sport that appeals to everybody across the country, you probably need to open it up a little bit more and have some more opportunity for teams to get in.
I know he made a comment in the article, Chris, about the unfortunate piece to me is rather than walking through the issues the past year, now we're trying to move it along. That was, partially the alliance, right? And those conferences coming together. Kevin Warren in that process went and grabbed his Oklahoma and Texas, so to speak. How do you think Sankey sees that whole alliance and the putting off the playoff expansion to where we are now in hindsight?
Yeah. Is there still such a thing as an alliance? Does anybody know?
No, clearly not.
It's a word that needs to be removed from the dictionary.
Greg's a smart guy, and he's got some wit to him, a dry wit about him. So I think it's clear what he's saying there, that we could have had this done last year.
Right.
And been a lot better chance to have a 12-team playoff in 2024. Now you've got to sort of rush it through, is what he's saying. Big Ten follows the SEC's lead, and they bring USC and UCLA from the West Coast to the Big Ten. The Big 12 responds, and they're bringing in 4 teams. And then there's the Pac-12. And people ask me all the time, I get this question, well, who do you think is probably the most on pins and needles right now? I'd say it's probably the Pac-12. What's going to happen? Are they going to get raided? Is Washington and Oregon going to go to to the Big Ten? Are they going to go to the Big 12? I don't think anybody knows that question. And the ironic thing is the Pac-12 was one of the main ones who did not want or did not like this proposed model a year ago, which is what I outlined a minute ago, the 6 conference champions and the 6 at-large teams. Well, now, as Greg said, the motivation sort of magically changed, and now everybody wants it because they want to be able to get a seat at the table, so to speak. So, yeah, there's some frustration there. They're going to get it done. There's going to be a 12-team playoff. I think the only question is, can they work through some of these issues in time to start it in 2024?
Why does he throw out some of the stuff like an SEC-only playoff? Is that to kind of move the needle in the direction he actually wants it to go? Like when he said, we could have an SEC-only playoff.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And I think he's also saying, listen, we were willing to compromise, 15 months ago. We were more than willing to compromise. We were on board with the 6 automatic qualifiers for the 6 highest rated conference champions. Okay. And 6 at-large teams. And all of a sudden, well, that wasn't good enough for everybody, or people were opposed to it, the 3 conferences that you just mentioned. So I think Greg's point at that point, he's like, okay, well, if we're not going to do that, we'll just stay at 4, or we'll go to 8, we'll go to 16. There won't be any automatic qualifiers. I think he's good either way. But he's also, I think, he's cognizant of the fact, and he mentioned this too when we sat on and talked a few days ago, is that in these conferences where you've got 2, 3, 4 teams vying for the championship, whether it's the AAC, whether it's the Pac-12, whether it's the Big 12, what have you, that you're going to have 3 or 4 teams more invested with a chance to make it, play their way into the playoff. And that's good for college football. The more teams are involved, I think this is Greg's overriding message now, that we've gone through all this red tape and all this bickering and all this back and forth, everybody trying to sort of control their own territory. I think at the end of the day, what he's saying is, let's make sure in college football, with the landscape changing as it has, that we've got as many people involved and invested once we get into November as we possibly can. And the way to do that is expand this playoff to 12 teams and incorporate some automatic qualifiers for conference champions.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're talking to Chris Lowe from ESPN.com. Craig?
Well, and if you have more people invested, then you're probably the conference is going to have 3 or 4 teams in the mix when all these people are invested, then you're going to benefit in the long run anyways, right?
Absolutely, and he said that. And he said, listen, people think there's going to be fewer opportunities for us. No, it's going to be more opportunities for the SEC. Again, it's easy to go back and look at the rankings, the playoff rankings, or the final rankings of the last 3, 4, 5 years, and you'll see in those final rankings, if you had this proposed model in place, how many SEC teams, and there would have been a lot of Big Ten teams in there too. So he understands that widening or broadening the playoffs, you're going to get more SEC teams in there. I think he says, listen, in the last 5 years, you had 2 SEC teams in a 4-team format. So if everyone's going to sort of buck this proposal or say we don't want to do this, then hey, we're fine staying at 4. It's worked for us. So why would we want to change? But I think everybody that loves college football, everybody that has had had a seat at the table or has some involvement in it, wants to see the sport continue to thrive. And he's right. I until 15 years ago or so, I covered exclusively the SEC, and you see the SEC dominating, really the Deep South. When you throw in Clemson, Florida State won an SEC title an NCAA title in 2013, and you see the rest of the country. You look around and you're like, it's sort of become a regionalized sport. Well, I don't think anybody wants that. College football is better, and it's at its best when SC, is playing for titles. When Texas and Oklahoma, the teams up in the Northeast, the teams in the Big 12, Oregon and Washington. Oregon was in the very first one. In 2014, you had the very first playoff. Oregon was there in that playoff. It's a better sport. It's a more well-rounded sport when you've got more teams playing for it. And again, you've got more fans genuinely interested in the sport.
Chris, I was just curious, there's obviously expansion's always a crazy topic, and the SEC kind of re-kickstarted that topic last summer. Not kind of, they did, and then the domino effects. when Greg Sankey had that massive move, and then a year later, here comes Kevin Warren, he does the same thing, does he just tip the cap and say, well done? Or is there a feeling of like, okay, how do we, does he even feel the need that there needs to be a response at some point? Or does he look at it as, an opponent versus an ally? Do you get what I'm kind of saying there?
I asked Greg that. I don't think he feels like that they need to respond. The SEC, I don't believe is going to expand just to expand now,
right.
Just because the Big Ten and what Kevin and the Big Ten did. Kudos to them because they went and they took the West Coast two big dogs. I mean, they got the entire LA market in the Big Ten. I mean, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the SEC is going to jump out and start trying to bring in teams just to sort of respond to that. I know there's a feeling out there. You hear, will they go after Florida State?
Right.
That's sort of a geographical fit. Would they go after Clemson, North Carolina? I don't think they feel that way. If those teams reach out to them and they feel like there's a need or they want or justify the SEC expanding more, then they might do that. But right now, I think with Texas and OU coming aboard, and I think you'll probably see those teams in earlier than they're contractually going to be. I think you'll probably see it happen in 24. I think at that point, the SEC is pretty good with 16 teams.
I think also for the teams outside of being blue bloods or teams that have been really pretty good, and you're still the same teams are going to make the playoffs, but when you go back and look at who would have been in the playoff in the last, 8 or 9 years or so, and Baylor, maybe a couple, 3 times, TCU once or twice, among some others, I think that's healthy, that they all know, as you mentioned, that when they start in August, they know they have a chance. There's hope that they're going to get in, and a pretty good opportunity they get in the playoff.
Yeah, both of those teams. I throw Oklahoma State in there as well.
Yes, absolutely.
They'd be another school if you looked at it over the last decade that have gotten in multiple times in this format, this proposal we're talking about right now. No, I think it's people say that the skeptics say, well, I don't want to ruin the sanctity of the regular season. Well, I don't think you're really doing that. I think what you're doing is with opt-outs and teams, kids not playing in bowl games and the bowl games seemingly being a lesser deal than ever before. I think what you're doing now is you're giving teams and players more of a reason once you hit November to keep playing, to hang in there, and that if let's take the Big 12. Let's use the Big 12 as an example. Let's say that conference this coming year has sort of beaten up on each other, and you don't have anybody ranked in the top 10 or the top 7 or the top 8. Well, in a 12-team playoff, in this proposal, that the conference champion is almost certainly going to get in. So even if you've lost 2 games, and you're Baylor, you're Oklahoma State, and you win that Big 12 championship, then you're probably going to get in. Whereas in a 4-team format, there's no way you get in.
Yeah, doesn't it reinforce November, which is the regular season?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it does. I think for more teams and more players, it makes November, more important. It makes it, it just, again, right now, I think it's this because of the 14 playoff and coaches warned. I remember Nick Saban talking about this. He said, once we go down this road, the bowls are going to become less important. And he was right. Now, certainly hadn't hurt him in this program. They won 6 national championships. But I think people realized what was going to happen, that the playoff was going to become so end-all with just 4 teams that everybody else was sort of going to be left on the outside looking in. And I think that's what Greg, and he's not the only one. I've talked to other commissioners and other power brokers in college football who feel the same way, that it's sort of the responsibility of all of them right now to figure out a way to make this college football a little bit more inclusive across the country. Now, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden other teams that haven't won championships are going to start winning them. I mean, you look at the semifinals, guys. Look at the playoff semifinals the last 6, 7, 8 years in the 14 playoff. Most of them have been blowouts. So I don't know that this necessarily means the usual suspects aren't going to continue to win titles, but at least it opens it up for more teams to be invited to the party and have a chance. And I think, again, and I don't want to repeat myself, I think that's good for all of college football.
Do you think that when Greg Sankey's in the same room with Kevin Warren or Phillips and also Kleofkoff after the alliance, is there a little bit of tension, or is he so confident it doesn't matter?
Well, Greg's a very confident guy, a very smart guy. And I think those guys are all, for the most part, pros when they're in that room. I think they do their best to put aside. Now, I'm sure there was a few cold shoulders after after USC and UCLA in the middle of the night go to the Big Ten. I'm not sure that the folks out in the Pac-12 were jumping up down going to dinner with Kevin Warren. And I'm sure it was the same way Bob Bowlesby when Texas and Oklahoma went to the SEC. And it is a business. And that's what it is. And I think anybody who says it's not probably has their head in the sand. But I think most of those guys, in my dealings with them, they get frustrated. They feel like that sometimes everyone's not laying all their cards on the table, which I don't know that you probably should if you're legitimately in the business. But when they sit down to try to sort of work this playoff out and do it to where everybody's got a legitimate chance and it works for everybody around the country. And I think what Sankey has said and what they proposed last year, which is actually 15 months ago, proves this point that they're trying to do it. Everybody give a little bit, everybody take a little bit, make some compromises, and meet somewhere in the middle, which, again, I think if you look at this proposal, that's what Sankey, and not only Sankey, but a lot of people who helped put this thing together did.
Chris, one final thing. What are your thoughts? How much did you know Brett Yormark before he was named Big 12 commissioner? Your thoughts about maybe just anything you may have learned about him and the job, obviously early, the job he has in front of him?
Well, that he's not going to sit on his hands. He's going to be aggressive. And, they're not just going to sit there and let people come in there and pick teams off. They're going to sort of go on the offensive, which he said. I mean, I like the 4 teams. You look at the teams they brought in, and I was with Mike Gundy out there in Stillwater this summer. We were talking about it. I mean, you got UCF, you got Cincinnati, you got Houston coming in, BYU, all teams with football-centric reputation. I think they did. Granted, you don't want to lose OU in Texas in an ideal world, but you bring in teams that all have been pretty serious about football and have had some success. So I think that in itself proves that they're just not going to sit back and they're going to go on the offensive. And I would say that you'll see them continue to try to explore to bring in teams, especially given what may or may not happen out west with the rest of the Pac-12.
Chris, thank you. Really appreciate it. Chris Lowe, again, ESPN senior writer, his story with Greg Sankey. We discussed it a little bit at the start of the show and also with him live here on 365 Sports. Coming up around the corner, Connor O'Neill covers Wake Forest. That's one of the interesting games coming up this weekend in college football. And a little bit later on, we'll have some comments from Matt Campbell on Baylor as they lead up till that game Saturday in Ames at 11 o'clock kick. Our pregame at 9 o'clock Saturday morning here on 365 Sports and on local television on the CBS affiliate Waco and Central Texas KWTX. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store it's a great place to pick up what you need, order what you need, then go pick it up later in the week when it comes to tailgating. Baylor on the road this week, but they'll be back at McLean Stadium. This week's specials, top sirloin steak at $5.75 a pound. Beef short ribs, you just season them, you slow cook them, you put them in maybe even in a pot and let them just kind of cook slowly, $4.75 a pound. Bone-in pork chops at $2.25 a pound. Also, frozen ground chicken, $1.99 a pound. That's a pound of that. All snack sticks, $5.95 a pound. And then shrimp. I love shrimp. You can put it on most anything. I mean anything. I love it. The under 12, the big ones, Gulf shrimp at $14.95 a pound. 8 to 12 in a package, a pound. Tiger shrimp, $12.65 a pound. Gulf shrimp, 16 to 20, $10.50 a pound, and 31 to 35. The smaller ones at $7.35 a pound. There's a picture in the background of the ad that they have for this week's specials. Smoking sausage. They do that themselves inside their own facility. Waco Custom Meats, Waco Custom Marketplace. They have a butcher shop and bakery at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, during Ram Power Days, shop the year-after-year award-winning new 2022 Ram 1500, designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. This is a truck that's legendary. Get the first-class feel and luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop for Ram trucks. Visit today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Clemson, Wake Forest, one of the interesting games coming up this weekend. We know about Clemson. We've also discussed Wake Forest as well, and they had to go with that issue initially of the quarterback being out. Connor O'Neill joins us. He covers Wake Forest and on 365 Sports. Connor, they got him back quicker, a lot maybe sooner than most people think. How much of just a big breath of fresh air and adrenaline did that help the program?
You've hit the nail exactly on the head. I think, if you asked
back on August 10th what the best case scenario would be. I don't even know if Dave Clawson tells you that it was getting Sam Hartman back in week 2. I think that was a huge bullet dodged. I think it speaks to kind of the benefits of having a college that has a teaching hospital attached to it. Wake Forest Baptist is a pretty well-renowned hospital, and the CEO happened to be one of the world's leading authorities on the condition that Sam had with the blood clot. So everything seems to have worked out almost better than could have been hoped for.
Connor, this team looks a lot like they did last year. They can score. They can give you panics on defense sometime. But do you think that they are maybe a little bit ahead or behind where they were last season?
I think they're kind of where they were. I think offensively there's a little more concern than there was last year, especially at this point in the year. Their running game has looked pretty it has not distinguished itself, I think is the best way to put that. They ran for over 200 yards in the opener, but that was against an FCS team. And in the last 2 games, they failed to get to 100. They basically abandoned the run against Liberty. And that's, their playmakers are on the outside and their playmakers are at slot receiver and quarterback, but you can't be that one-dimensional. You especially can't be that one-dimensional against a team like Clemson that's one of the few defenses in the country that can actually take away your strength, not just mitigate. So they're going to have to find some balance offensively. And then I think Wake's defense is better than last year. I know they gave up 36 points to Liberty, but they bailed the offense out in a few situations. Aside from just a couple runs that got broken on them, they really played pretty well last weekend.
Take me through just the kind of the drama of that game. I mean, I know that Liberty's got a pretty good little quarterback there in Caden Salter. We saw him at Cedar Hill High School here in Texas and was at Tennessee originally, but he really gave them something, and that was a heck of a game, man. Take us through getting the stop and being able to win that game when all was said and done.
Yeah, well, in the interest of full transparency, I wasn't there. I covered Duke also, and it was just the logistics of it were easier for me to cover Duke that day than Wake. I rewatch every Wake game, I DVR and go through it and watch some plays, 10 or 15 times to really get a sense of it. And I mean, it comes right down to it. I think the biggest thing in my takeaway, it's so easy for me to say this in hindsight with listening to the post game presser and talking to a couple players this week already, that Wake did not have a good week of preparation. And their players have admitted that. Dave Clawson has admitted that. And so when you have that, plus you find yourself at the end of the first half, you're up 20-5. You know that you haven't played well and you're still up by 2 touchdowns. Yeah, you're going to feel like you pretty much are in the catbird seat there. So when Liberty comes out and punches you in the mouth with 2 quick strike touchdowns in the second half and all of a sudden leads 23-20, you need to do some soul searching and do some deep digging. That third quarter, I mean, that was a disastrous quarter. And if Wake didn't have the fourth quarter that they did, you guys probably aren't talking to me this week. This game, this game doesn't have much national appeal. It's 3-0 Clemson on the way to take care of business in Winston-Salem before going home to essentially wrap up the Atlantic Division if they can beat NC State.
Well, I love your honesty. That's a great point. Truist Field, Wake Forest is not going to have a large stadium. Everyone thinks about the ones with 75,000 or 100,000. Baylor's McLean Stadium is somewhere in that 45 to 50 range, 31,500. How lit up will it be? I know it's a day game, but how loud can that get for a game like with Clemson in town?
It'll get loud. The interesting part to me is always how much of the crowd, it's a blackout for Wake. So how much of the crowd is actually going to be in black and how much of it is going to be in orange? Mm-hmm. Are we going to feel like it's Halloween a month early? I think Wake has kind of tried to strategically plan against that by pricing the tickets as high as they have, I think like the lowest prices are still $80, $90 to $100. So you're trying to kind of fend against all the people who, wake up on Saturday or have some change of plans late in their week and they say, oh, we can get a ticket here for $20 and just ride up the interstate to Winston-Salem. So it's the atmosphere more than the fan. You're never going to have the numbers of a College Station or a Big House or anywhere like that, but you've got to get the atmosphere. And I think that's what will be electric. That will be, that should give Wake a little bit of a home field advantage.
Connor, Clemson hasn't played anybody yet, but even in that, you can see that their offense has taken strides forward from last year where they were stuck in the mud for the entire season. How much does this concern Wake when they're looking at Clemson team that looks to be maybe not all the way back to where they were, but on the way back?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a concern, right? I mean, DJ Uiagalelei is not, maybe to a little bit, but not to the extent that he was last year, throwing bounce passes to open receivers. I mean, his fundamentals, his confidence, everything was just shot last year. And they scored 48 on Wake Forest in that game. I think DJ threw 2 or 3 passes in the entire second half, and they just ran the ball right down Wake's throats. And they benefited from a couple of turnovers that gave them short fields. But yeah, it's Will Shipley was banged up last year. He's healthy. He looks like we're in the Carolinas, and he's from Charlotte, so he looks like Christian McCaffrey light, and that's really going to test Wake's kind of recalibrated defense under Brad Lambert. The thing I'm interested to see is, I made this point earlier in talking to somebody. You had Taj Boyd was throwing to guys like Mike Williams and Sammy Hopkins. Then you had Deshaun Watson throwing to Hunter Renfrow and Nuke Hopkins. You had this long line of just NFL caliber receivers come through Clemson, and I don't know if they have that anymore. So that's an area where I think it's kind of overlooked because you just figure, oh, they're Clemson, they have NFL receivers, but I don't know if those guys are still at that level anymore.
Connor, thank you very much. It's a stretch now for Wake Forest. They have Clemson at home, at Florida State and Tallahassee, and they turn around and then host Army, which is that unique game because of how they play, and they're pretty good. And so that will be a fun 3-week stretch to see about Wake Forest. Connor O'Neill with the Substack. He covers Wake Forest with us on 365 Sports. It's 4:55. When we come back, the 5 o'clock hour, including at 5:30, we'll hear from John Machota on the Cowboys in the NFL and so much more. Sikkim, 365 Radio, 365 Sports, and also next, Iowa State's Matt Campbell on Baylor and his team. It's 4:55 on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals going on right now at Richard Carr. They are the people you can count on when it comes to the life of your vehicle, getting a great deal, and also customer service as well. I've had my car over there a couple of different times, even though I didn't buy it there originally, and I can attest that they are the people you can count on, and they have terrific customer service. But right now, the wait is over for those that are looking for new trucks. They have GMC trucks in stock. 2022 Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you to test drive today. Sierras offer the best-in-class towing, strong steel bed, multi-pro tailgate, advanced collision avoidance, and a luxurious interior that includes massive touchscreens, 14 camera views, and premium comfort. So trucks are waiting for you to test drive right now. Get to the dealership and drive your next truck today. And if the exact truck or SUV that you're looking for is not on the lot, get on their inbound vehicle list, and you can cut in line for trucks that are in production but not quite in stock, or let them help you design the exact truck or SUV that you want, and Richard Carr will have GMC prioritize it for you. So either way you go, customer service, getting a deal, getting into something new, getting into something used, Richard Carr is going to help you do all of those things or one of those things or just whatever you're looking to do because, as always, they are the people that you can count on. For 23 years in Central Texas, run by proud Wakeoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
1, 2. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy, last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrap filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Deckers goes for Hutchinson, and he's got a touchdown. There are no flags, and Iowa State has the lead.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
The all-time series between Baylor and Iowa State doesn't go back very far. And remember, the Big 12 had 2 different divisions, so they didn't play every year, but they have now every year since, 2000, I guess, at 11. Baylor leads the series 11-9, winning last year 31-29, and then 23-21 a couple of years ago. Those games have been in Waco. Iowa State, I'm still trying to figure out how the 2020 team that Baylor had in Ames against a team that played for the Big 12 title in the Cyclones, that game at one point looked like Iowa State was going to absolutely blow a tire. And that was the game when Terrell Bernard went down, Squirrel Williams went down, and I'm still trying to figure out how that team had 31 points for Baylor. And they lost 38-31, Iowa State winning the game in Ames. They've won the last couple of times they have been in Ames. Matt Campbell and Baylor coming up with Dave Aranda Saturday at 11 o'clock. Here are just a handful of clips from Matt Campbell on Baylor and his own team.
What is it about this Baylor team? I mean, obviously they're really deep in the backfield, been really strong up front on both sides of the ball. How do they impress you in, I guess, those areas?
I think they have elite team speed across the board. I think when you look at this football team, it doesn't matter what the position is. What jumps off the film is elite speed. And I think when you talk about their secondary, they can run and strike and they're physical. You talk about their D-line, they're big, they're strong, but they can really run. Linebackers play sideline to sideline. Then you jump to the offensive side of the football. It's the same thing. You got elite speed at the skill receiver positions. You got elite speed at the running back position. And, their offensive linemen, yes, they're big, but they can really run. And I think everything's predicated and recruited to the ability to really run and have great speed and great tempo. So, I think that's really what jumps off. And then you talk special teams. They've already got a punt return for a touchdown. They've got an elite kick returner. So it really is about their speed. And what I think they've done such a great job is adding physicality to that speed across the board.
Do you prepare any differently? Because at least on paper, this could be a very defensive game. Do you prepare any differently if you're playing a team that's very defensive compared to a team that's, possibly very offensive?
Yeah, I think every game, we've talked about this, Randy, forever, is just every game's got a certain flow. And sometimes you think you know what the flow of the game's going to be, and you try to, guess it the best way possible, and then you get in and you have to adapt. And so I think you're always preparing, all three phases of the game to kind of fit, number one, your personnel, and then number two, obviously what you're trying to face. So, I think, again, we've faced some really good defenses already this year and been in those games, and you're facing an outstanding football team across the board right now. Certainly all three phases, they're a great football team, and so you give them credit where it's due, and then get your guys ready to go play and try to put our guys in the best position to be successful.
Why has this series with Baylor been as competitive and back and forth as it's been the last few years?
Yeah, I would have to imagine, they've been a really good team, and I think that's the one thing that they are. They're not just a good this or that. They're a good football team, and, they're going to challenge you in all three phases. They're going to try to beat you in all three phases, and they can beat you in all three phases. And so, I think we try to be that same version and try to be the best we can be in all three phases and put ourselves in the best position to be successful. But really well-coached team, a team that's really disciplined and really gives themselves a chance to win every time they go out and play.
You always talk about growth and how important that is to your program. I know there's a long way to go yet, but even in just these first three games, how would you kind of characterize the growth that you've seen with a team that obviously coming in had a little bit less experience than you've encountered in the past?
Yeah, I think that's probably why the growth that I have seen has probably been astronomical in a lot of ways of what I've seen since even where we were at the end of spring practice to where we are today. And I think a lot of that is some of the inexperience. A lot of that is the youth. I think when you are young, the growth pattern probably has the ability to accelerate and probably go, with a lot more ebb and flow than when, you're an older team. And so I think this young team has really had the willingness and humility to grow. So I think you have to have that as well, and probably the right veteran leaderships to guide the growth pattern the way it's been able to grow so far. And again, I think all those things are going to be tested again this week. I think we'll have another measuring stick of how far have we grown and where are we really. But, again, I really like the humility and how this group has attacked growth so far. And they'll need to continue to do that, and we'll all need to continue to do that to continue to move forward.
All right, that's Matt Campbell, Iowa State head coach. Sorry about the buzz. That's part of the feed we received from Iowa State as he discusses Baylor. 11 o'clock, just after 11 o'clock is the kick time. There's a couple of things, and Craig was, while the audio was being played, last year's team, to me, and Matt Campbell said this last year when Baylor played them, that might have been one of the fastest teams that he has ever seen, with Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie and Kalen Barnes and name others as well, J.T. Woods. They don't have that speed. Those guys came from any direction, and they did it quickly. They're hoping to get to that point, but they don't have that type of the raw speed that they had a year ago.
Not even close. I mean, maybe track times are similar, but they're not anywhere close to what the speed was last year, because the speed's not just your natural speed. The speed is also the speed with you're playing with. What does that come with? That comes with experience. That comes with having guys like Jalen Petrie, who'd played for 4 and 5 years, and JT Woods and Kalen Barnes, and the list goes on. JT Woods, Kalen Barnes, and Raleigh Tejada alone, this team's nowhere close to that fast. Not even close to that fast. So that'll be a pleasant surprise for them, is that Baylor, yeah, they still have some team speed, but I think you look out to Lubbock, and they're trying to go in that direction of just be so fast that nobody can affect you. And I think, others try to do that as well, and that's certainly what Matt Rule was doing for a while, and that's what Briles did for forever. Was they were just so much faster than most everybody they played, or who they weren't more talented than. They were as fast or faster than, and because of the offense they ran, they could just get a couple of turnovers. They were going to be able to play with pretty much anybody because they were so daggone fast, and their offense was so fast. That is not the case anymore. Like, they don't have a bunch of burners on, at least that I can tell. Again, there might be guys who have official track times, but in terms of you turn on the tape and you go, wow, like maybe Monterey Baldwin. And we've seen not a ton of him, like, at this point. Like, we really haven't. And outside of that, I don't know. I didn't even mention Tyquan Thornton on offense.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
this year's team, I would say the guys I'd want running, just circles around people would be Monterey and Squirrel. Squirrel's just naturally, are so fast. But, when they get in the open field, it's good night. But on defense, I have not seen that at all. I mean, I see guys that are bigger, stronger, type guys, but they're not like JT Woods. You look at the guy and he's lanky and didn't really look like he could be a 4.35 guy, and that's what he was. He's a 4.35 guy. Kalen Barnes was, state champion 100 kind of speed. Like, he was
borderline Olympic speed.
Yeah, he was so fast.
Ebner, and I'm talking about defense.
Yeah, but like
Ebner,
they lost a lot of speed, and everybody's trying to get it. And sometimes you have good speed, sometimes you have great speed. That team last year, Craig, you're right, had great speed.
But they also had great speed because they knew where they were going even before the play started, because they were so experienced, as you mentioned. So that makes it even look like you're faster than you are.
No, it makes them look right now way slower than they have been. And so, yeah, I mean, that's good that he sees that on tape. But, I think there's a big downgrade in terms of that speed, not only naturally, but mostly just knowing what you're doing. I mean, this is clearly a team that's still trying to figure out what they're doing in so many ways. And, yeah, you've got a Dylan Doyle who's been around for a while, but he looks to his left and he looks to his right, and he sees guys who have kind of been around and sort of not been, and then in some cases, like a Brooks Miller's, like, basically not been involved at all until about 3 weeks ago. So it's a hodgepodge of different types of guys. It is not the Jalen Petrie, Terrell Bernard, JT Woods, Kalen Barnes, defense that we're accustomed to seeing. They're more big and physical up front and less super speed playmakers on the back end. And that's part of what they're trying to figure out is where can they find some of those playmakers on the back end. And, maybe that's what they are able to find out some more of this weekend. But, I mean, a few minutes ago before we played that, you were asking about, I don't understand how that 2020 game was as close as it was. Well, Baylor had 2 interceptions pretty much right out of the gate, and they also had a pick 6 in that first half as well. That's why that game, they got out 14-0 in the first quarter on 2 Purdy interceptions. And then I think Iowa State might have scored, and then eventually Baylor got a pick 6. And at halftime, it was like a double-digit lead. And then it was a different second half that was close fought. But that's why that game was the way that it was with that 2020 game, was that Baylor had, I think, 3 first-half interceptions, including a pick 6 and 2 in the first quarter. That's where that came from my recollection.
Yeah, there was a play. It was 21-10 at halftime. But I think Iowa State put some points on the board right before the half ended. And then there was a play early on in the third quarter that flipped all the field position. And from that point on, Iowa State was playing on Baylor's end of the field, and Baylor was struggling.
And then Squirrel Williams got hurt.
Yeah.
And he was dominating in that
You know what's
game.
amazing, though? Say that again. What did you say about Squirrel Williams?
And then Squirrel Williams got hurt, and he was dominating in that game. He was making plays left and right. I know
he had 8 carries for 28 yards.
But he had
it seemed like, but you're right. It seemed like he had like 70, 80 yards in that first half.
If you want to say that, well, if Colt McCoy doesn't get hurt, then Texas beats Bama. And if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt, then Texas beats Bama. And whatever version of whatever team you want to use, that's just the one that comes to mind the most. Then it's very fair to say for Baylor fans that if Squirrel Williams doesn't get hurt, they probably win that game. And Iowa State fans might disagree, but that's all in the debate. He was finding yardage when nobody else could find yardage, and he was a different type of runner than anybody else on that team. And then he goes down, and just all the air went out of any tire that they had remaining at that point. He was the one to kind of like help stave off the full-on rush from Iowa State.
He gave Charlie Brewer a chance to throw the football because they struggled most of the year to do that. He nearly threw for 300. And then, of course, he threw the deadly pick that ended the game. Iowa State ran for 200 that game. Baylor had 71 yards, but it seemed like Squirrel Williams had about 100 at halftime the way that thing was going. 38-31, Iowa State wins the game, 21-point third quarter. And I still, because Baylor was terrible in 2020 with that 2-7 team. All right, we have John Machota around the –
That was a 6-win team, wasn't it, 2020?
That was COVID.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Just getting my ears confused.
2018 was the –
Yeah, I'm just getting my ears confused. My bad.
When we come back, a couple more nuggets we'll look into.
You can stay here for about 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll do that then. Then we will do that then. All right. Now, on the chat room, you want to dive in there, Paul?
Sure.
You have the you-know-whats to go and look in there. A lot of the talk has been today about are the stories we've had discussing Greg Sankey and him wanting to open up, even though some people may not trust him, and or the college football the NCAA college football calendar being changed where they might play a week earlier, although they did that this year. They just didn't recognize it as well. From Montana, and Chris Nelson's been saying this, you're right, the playoffs will make it more exciting for at least 6 conferences rather than 4 teams. There's one of the responses from Montana.
Yeah.
Cindy Machado made this. Go ahead and you guys talk on that. I'll get to what Cindy Machado said about Army-Navy.
Yeah, I think it makes it really interesting the whole year. And Craig said this before, is that you lose that, especially if you lose that big non-conference game that you have in week 2. You lose that one, and unless it is teams that people already we want to see this again, kind of had in their mind, and the committee want to see this again, it's over for you. You have to do that. Now, if you have 2 games where you can, in a tough conference, and this is not just true for the Big Ten or the SEC, and the SEC is going to be a tough conference, but yeah, if you are an A&M fan in that year that you do not go 8-4 and you go 10-2, you can actually make the playoff. You can actually be in something, as opposed to the 10-2 year. I'm like, if we'd only beaten LSU and Alabama, LSU and Alabama and you might all be in the playoffs because that might be, loss, all those things. So, yeah, it's better. It's going to be better all the way around. Now, I do think there will be things that we find wrong with it, but, we can find, infinite things wrong with the 4 teams playoff now.
Yeah, I just think having more access is not a bad thing. I think the only argument that people who are against it have is that, somehow it'll water down the regular season. I think that's pretty much been debunked with the fact that you'll have more teams alive later in the year. So how does that water down the regular season? I guess it waters it down because you don't have to be perfect or you only get to lose 1 game. I don't know why that should necessarily be some grand qualification as you only lost 1 game. I think teams change and get better and injuries come into play. And there's other factors that may cause a team who's actually pretty good to have more than a loss. And you know what? They might still be deserving of being in there and having a chance to fight for it when all is said and done because they go on a crazy win streak or they're finally healthy by the end of the year. And maybe that first month or so wasn't indicative of who they are. And yet we kind of make that determination on a lot of teams pretty early. Not just 1 game necessarily, but we also know that 1 loss doesn't register the same for some teams as it does for others. Some teams 2 loss equals another team's 1 loss as far as their ability to contend. And so I don't think that changes. I think that, we're going to see the argument sooner rather than later of why this 4-loss SEC team somehow finding its way into the back end of the playoff. And that time will come, I'm sure, and we'll have to have that argument about why 4-loss Arkansas is more deserving than a 2-loss team out of the ACC. But at least there will be a team probably from the ACC and the Big 12 and the Pac-12.
Yeah, that other part you're talking about is an at-large team.
As an at-large team. And that's where I think you're going to get some of the screwiness is that determination of who those at-large teams are, because there will be a push of, well, they played a way tougher schedule because they're in this conference. And we're going to get some of that still, but at least some other teams who have absolutely zero shot will have a shot. And, hopefully just this conversation's not a week to – I mean, the regular season is where the focus should be now, but I do think it's something to look forward to in the long run, and I don't think that it will take away too much from how special the regular season feels as is right now.
I would rather be arguing about who gets in at number 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 rather than knowing that there at least will be an 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Well, knowing that a 5 deserves to have a shot to see if they can stack up with the 1 or the 2, and knowing that they'll never get that shot because they don't have 80,000 people on a weekly basis at home. And that's where I think some of the disgruntled nature of the 14 playoff comes from for non-Alabama fan or non-Ohio State fan or whatever. And they see it as like, oh, just shut up and know your place and you're not the big boys and whatever. I see that talk from Twitter people and even some media people who try to come across as the everyman, and they're just as elitist as anybody. I think it's going to be great to see it opened up. And if you know what, those people are right in the long run, that Bama's just going to smack around Pitt or Baylor or whoever, then cool. But at least we'll get to see it, and at least that'll mean something.
But before that game's even played, the team they're going to play in the second round will have won a playoff game. Right?
Yeah.
And been a part of a playoff game. Today, Alabama received a commitment from Longview wide receiver Jalen Hale. He was down to Alabama, Texas, Georgia, and USC. When you have those 4, you know how elite you are, top 100 player, depending on which ranking you look at. Jalen Hale is a guy that catches about 5 passes a game, and one of them for the Lobos is usually about a 50-plus yarder. They have a heck of a test coming up this weekend against Lancaster. Aaron Judge, how many does he have now?
6-0.
60s. Giancarlo Stanton hit a grand slam last night to win it for the Yankees, but Aaron Judge now has tied Babe Ruth, which was the old home run record. Maris is next at 61. Craig brought this up yesterday that he is on his way. There's a chance because
he hits the AL record.
Yeah, but he has a chance to hit like 5 in 3 days. Where would you think he has to be by Wednesday of next week if, in fact, we're going to get really, really like, whoa, with 5 games to go, and he's got 67 or 68. Not that he's going to get there.
I don't think he's going to get there.
I'm not saying he's going to get there.
He'd have to hit 2 a game to get to 70
for the rest of the week.
So, yeah. Which, look, I mean, if anybody's going to do it, it would be him.
He
but
looks
I don't
like
think
he's hitting a baseball with a toothpick.
Yeah, he does.
Great power.
I think there's 2 things historically I think about this. One, I'm really glad that this has gone so well for Aaron Judge because it did not for poor Roger Maris.
No, you're right. That's a great point.
It didn't. It was an awful year for him. He lost his hair, and the worst part about it is that for the majority of the year until Mickey Mantle got an infection in his hip from getting a shot from some quack doctor, he was also in the home run chase. So if they wanted somebody to break it, they wanted Mickey to break it and not Roger Maris, who was playing the same position which made no sense to me. In New York, they're throwing chairs at him from the stands. It was bad. Aaron Judge, they're so happy that the dude who caught the 60th home run ball just gave it back to him.
Yeah.
Didn't even ask for any money.
Where Maris was basically shunned because he was breaking the Bambino's record with the 61.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he needs 16 home runs. There's 15 games left.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not gonna do that. I mean, hopefully I jinx it. Hopefully he does, but I don't see that happening for him. And if you haven't seen 61, the movie, I really enjoyed that like 25 years ago with Barry Pepper on HBO. It's outdated at this point, but I thought it was a good movie back then. Haven't seen it in 20 years, but yeah, I like Barry Pepper, so check that out if you want.
Cindy Machado on the chat room. I want to get to your question. You asked it a little bit ago. I actually copied and pasted it to make sure I got it right. Would the Army-Navy game in December be scheduled a week earlier as well? It's always been, it's not always. It's been the weekend after the conference championships, and it's the game I will never miss, no matter what. I just won't miss that game. And you wonder, when will they start the playoffs? And would that be the weekend they would start the playoffs, or would it be a week after that?
Yeah, that's one of the things that
because Army-Navy's going to – you want that. You always have tried to again, I'm not trying to compare it to the Rose Bowl because the Rose Bowl's arrogant as hell. That game has always been kind of alone.
Yeah, and it's certainly earned it. So
yeah.
So I think they'll figure out something to do with Army Navy.
Yeah, I don't
They'll
know at
figure
this
out
point.
something.
I have no idea.
It's gonna maybe require a change.
I mean, they're not going to just go lump it in with a bunch of other games and
No.
not treat it like it's special. It's going to be treated special. I just don't know how they're going to configure that. I mean, this is not even a thing yet. This is a proposal for what they could potentially do with a year-round calendar. And part of that is moving up games, the week 0 thing, reconfiguring for expanded playoff. And, there's a lot of little pieces to this as far as the schedule goes. This isn't 2 + 2 = 4. So I would have to imagine that in all the different formulas they're running and all the different things they're trying to place on the calendar, that there will be a special spot still for Army Navy. I think that if your whole goal and your talk is about doing what's best for college football, and Greg Sankey's, so openly talking about, believing in the West Coast and the teams, west of the Rockies and wanting them to be a part of college football, then they're not going to ignore Army Navy. That would just be dumb as hell, quite frankly.
It is going to be, and it is a massive, massive ratings game with the viewers and eyeballs for not even all the reasons of anything football, and we know why. 522, John Machota, theathletic.com, covers the Cowboys in the NFL. He's next on Sikkim 365 Radio. Marco's Pizza. Pepperoni Magnifico. Enjoy a $9.99 pepperoni Magnifico. It's loaded up. Everywhere you look on the front of that pie, on the top of that pie, is a piece of pepperoni. Order now online, pepmag.com. Pepmag is the code word on marcos.com. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Large one-topping pizzas for $8.99 online. You can order with $8.99 to go. $3 off large specialty pizzas. Use the code SPECIAL3. Unlimited medium one-topping pizzas, $7.99 each. So maybe you want to get 3 different types, and the ones on the screen are pepperoni and also sausage, Italian sausage, and one that just has some vegetables, including, looks like bell peppers on the top. The all-new cauliflower crust, powered by Power. Cauliflower crust available at marcos.com. Download their app. Get 25% off your first menu price order. Pizza is a tap away. Pizza lovers get it marcos.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people. Good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The
Team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, wants to get you back in the game.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
I mentioned there are very few websites that I am on that is a one you pay for. TheAthletic.com is one for many different reasons, especially what they do across the board, college football. But John Machota works for TheAthletic.com, and today, in a little snippet that they have in the morning, he was highlighted for what he did to look at some of the stats from Micah Parsons, and John Machota joins us now on 365 Sports. 17 sacks in 18 career games, the most by anybody. Is that right, since the league started taking track of that stat in 1982?
That's right, yeah. And I think he edged out Aldon Smith, because obviously Aldon Smith had a huge start to his career in San Francisco. Some people will look at that, and it's very close to being on pace with Aldon Smith, and they'll say, well, you know, Aldon Smith was just a flash early on in his career, and so you can be critical of those numbers if you want, but it's just, when you put those numbers up against, you know, I looked up a lot of the greats that have, you know, rushed the passer in the last, 20, 30, 40 years, and it's, no one, I mean, heck, DeMarcus Ware had 9 sacks in his first 18 games. Lawrence Taylor had 12. Reggie White had 14. Bruce Smith had 8.5. So where Micah Parsons is at is just such rare air. And obviously with them playing the Giants this week, it'll be just like last year when he was having a sensational rookie season. It's that, the way he plays the game, people are going to make comparisons to Lawrence Taylor. Of course, he has to play for a long time and probably put at least one Super Bowl ring on his hand before you can legitimately make those comparisons. But he's showing some of the things you saw early in Lawrence Taylor's career.
Yeah, John, I think one of the things that and the Cowboys just have not had a guy like this, even when DeMarcus Ware was there, in a very long time, and because they're rare. The LTs, but not only that, just somebody you can move around. Like you wrote the column about how they don't just want to leave him as a pass rusher. They want to move him around and have him affect the game. The guys like Troy Polamalu who could do that, or Derek Thomas, or where you just throw them somewhere out in the field and they're going to make a play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's great about them moving around, I know that there is a lot of pushback from fans that I've heard many a times over the last, 6 to 8 months. They're like, just put him at edge rusher and just let him go. They don't want to do that because they believe him being able to be lining up at any spot at any given time is one of their greatest advantages. That good luck game planning for this. You spend all week, you can game plan and have your left tackle completely prepared that, hey, you're going to see a lot of Micah Parsons. And then all of a sudden he's doing most of his rushing from up the middle or on the other side. or he's playing linebacker. I mean, that's one of those things that's interesting about this game coming up is that you look at his snaps, the way that they were broken down last year in his 2 games against New York, he played most of his snaps as a linebacker. So just because he played predominantly all edge rusher against Cincinnati, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the same game plan for this game. I mean, heck, you can compare it apples to apples to last season. That Week 2 game against the Chargers, I mean, he played he played all 39 snaps as an edge rusher or on the defensive line. So you think, okay, they're making that move. And then, a couple weeks later, they're playing the Giants, and he's got 58 of his 63 snaps are at linebacker. So there's no given from week to week on where he's going to be. And because you can't just do that with any player, you have to be so gifted athletically and then be so strong because you're going against such a variety of different talents. And he just has that rare athletic ability. And I think the thing that we'll always point to the longer he has his success is how did this guy fall out of the top 10 and land in the Cowboys' lap?
John, should I add Cooper Rush to my fantasy team? And I'm just kidding with that. I don't have a fantasy team. But, I mean, what a performance from that young man. And what is a game overall, the early lead, the big lead at halftime, and then the Bengals comeback. Just where does that game kind of sit in terms of the unexpected and the fun and the crazy and all that came with that game on Sunday?
Yeah, it was surprising. And I guess it shouldn't have been just because of what he did against Minnesota. I thought what it did a lot is it solidified what he did against the Vikings was not a fluke last year. And in many different ways, I know it's easy to, kind of criticize the Vikings for what they are. They're a good, solid team. They're not a Super Bowl contender, I don't believe, but that's a good, solid team. And then a win in their place on a Sunday night like that was a huge win. And then here you got a Bengals team that this is a good team that played in the Super Bowl a year ago. And generally speaking, the Cowboys just haven't played well against good teams at home in a long time. And so several years. And so to have that type of performance against them, to have those 2 wins on his resume now and his only 2 starts is just so impressive. And here's the thing. I understand that, the first 2 drives went well. And a lot of people will say that the offense sputtered after that. I thought they were moving the ball well until the Dalton Schultz fumble in the second half. I thought there was certainly going to be points there, maybe just another field goal, but they were driving that defense that actually led the league in takeaways last year. And there's only been 1 takeaway through these first 2 games. I think that there's going to be more to come there. And maybe that happens on Monday night and give Cooper Rush some short fields to work with and maybe you get some points that way. But yeah, I don't expect him to just go out and throw for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns every week, but he does have a calming presence to him that as long as you keep it close, you can trust him late in games to make game-winning plays. He's played and started 2 games, won both, and both of them he led game-winning drives.
I remember the game in Minnesota. He did this, and he did it again. At times the second half got to be a little bit iffy, but he's not afraid to make a throw. He's not afraid to make a tough throw. Most of the time, backup quarterbacks run the ball, make it dink and dunk or whatever. Is that unique in a backup quarterback?
I think so, especially for a guy that it's not like he's this clear-cut, we knew all offseason he's going to be their backup. You thought it was a pretty good chance because of, again, him stepping in and playing the way he did against Minnesota. But there was also a legitimate competition with him and Will Grier throughout training camp and throughout the preseason. And, the Cowboys on their initial 53-man roster only had 1 quarterback on that roster. And so, yeah, Cooper Rush wasn't going to go anywhere. He was going to remain on the Cowboys practice squad and be called up week 1 to be the backup. But this isn't like this is a guy that, there's just a no-brainer. If he's going to be on the team, he's going to be Dak's backup. And if we need him in a big game, we can go to him. So, there's an element of surprise here. But, yeah, you're right about the confidence he has. I mean, I don't think that you need to look at anything more than just that 4th and 2 that they go for on their side of the field. And it's not like he just takes a safe throw down to Zeke or just hands the ball off or throws something in the flat. I mean, he threw a pretty high, it's a risky pass to Noah Brown coming across the middle of the field. It's not a gimme, especially with their pass rush closing in on him. And he got that, and then he goes down and that touchdown pass as he's moving to his right in the back of the end zone to Noah to kind of get them going, get them on the board, give them momentum. Huge throws. He's certainly not just dinking and dunking all game long.
Do you buy into the Dak might be ready early, or is that Cowboys rah-rah math?
Yeah, I don't buy into it. I buy into science, and I buy into the fact that if doctors say that this is 4 to 6 weeks, and so I'm going to go on that. I don't think he's playing for at least 4 games from the injury. So I don't buy the whole coming back and playing against possibly the Rams or Washington. I've had my eyes focused because keep in mind, it's not just coming back. He's also got to practice with that. So the soonest that I would expect him to be back is that Eagles game. And hey, to be honest with you, when that injury happened, and especially the way that Jerry Jones's personality was as he came out of the locker room after hearing that news and how down he was, you certainly thought it was going to be well beyond that Eagles game. So if you can have him back for that game, I think that's your most realistic earliest return, because here's the thing, like this isn't Florida State versus Duquesne where you're like, well, that's okay. We'll get some receivers behind guys and they'll have some wide open throws. No, in the NFL, you're not going to get huge wide open throws very often, I guess, unless you have Tyreek Hill. So you're going to have to throw tight window throws. And to do that, your thumb has to be in tip-top shape, and you got to be able to put zip on the ball. And so when he's able to do all that, then you can reevaluate that thing. But to force him back out there, too early, it would be a huge mistake. And frankly, he'd have to be cleared medically first before that happens. So I don't buy necessarily all that, the talk that you're maybe hearing from Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones right now on that.
If Jerry's talking about an injury, you can't trust him.
Well, the thing is with him is that this is the thing, when you get Jerry or Stephen talking on the radio, and obviously Jerry much more than Stephen because Jerry is as optimistic as anybody can be. They're also selling to their fan base too that, hey, it's not all doom and gloom around here. I know everyone's down with the way we started the season. Hey, there's, reinforcements are on the way. There's going to be guys coming back. This injury isn't as significant with Dak. This week he could be back sooner. So I get where they're coming from on that standpoint. But if you're a football coach like Mike McCarthy, you're not trying to talk about how Dak Prescott's going to be back in 2-3 weeks after this injury. You're looking at bone healing. It takes 4 to 6 weeks. You're looking at, stitches need to come out. He needs to, recover first before he starts, throwing balls all over the yard, things like that. You're dealing in more of a reality than the idea of, hey, let me just put out to the fan base that, he could be back a lot sooner than maybe everybody thought, So I don't believe it. I'd be surprised if he's out there earlier than the Eagles game. And heck, let's see how Cooper Rush keeps playing, because I think if he keeps playing well, I think that buys Dak some time, maybe an extra week to get healthier before they bring him back as their starting quarterback.
What do you make of the Dennis Houston move this week? Is that for Jalen Tolbert or is that for Michael Gallup?
I think it's for Michael Gallup, personally. I thought it when it happened, and then today being at the facility, and we talked to Mike McCarthy, and he mentions how today's practice, which is more of a walkthrough because this isn't a typical Wednesday because they don't play till Monday. But today was more of a walkthrough, but he said that Gallup was going to have a full slate of reps, and what that means is that there isn't going to be any easing him in this week of practice. That was last week. Last week was the first time in pads. This one is, hey, let's try and put a regular practice week on you, see how you recover, see how you're feeling on Sunday, and then let's go. And then if he's not active, you technically, I believe, still can bring Dennis Houston back up because he cleared waivers, so they'll probably sign him back to the practice squad, or it's Jalen Tolbert. But the way everything's pointing right now, as long as there's no setbacks, I think that spot's for Michael Gallup. And again, hey, real quick, that will not be Michael Gallup playing every offensive snap or playing like he normally would. He'll be on a pitch count. Maybe he's just out there for third downs, second and longs, red zone situations. But you certainly will take him in that than not having him at all.
Why are the Giants are winning close games? Obviously, who knows who they are, but they feel pretty confident. Dayball's done a nice job, but why? What else are they? Saquon's healthy, it appears. Why are they winning?
So Saquon is the biggest reason. He leading the NFL in rushing. Clearly looks like the Saquon pre-knee injury, the guy that you saw coming out of college that you're just like, this guy's going to be a monster in the NFL. Really, the offensive version at Penn State of what Mike has been on defense. And he's playing like that now. And I have to give a lot of credit to him because you look across the rest of that roster and it does leave you scratching your head. Like, how is this being done? Their top pick, Kayvon Thibodeau, hasn't played yet. This could be a game he returns. When I wrote that story about the Cowboys draft board, Kayvon Thibodeau was the number one player on the Cowboys draft board this year. He's obviously a significant player. If they might get him back this week, that would be huge for them. But he's not going to be 100%. Leonard Williams, their standout interior defensive lineman, he's dealing with a knee issue. He's not going to be 100%. They've been without Azeez Ojulari, their other standout edge rusher out of Georgia. So it's not like they've been, at 100%. And then the biggest one, this is the one that leaves me really scratching my head, is that two of their biggest investments on the perimeter, Kadarius Toney and I can't think, Kenny Galladay, the big time free agent acquisitions. They haven't done anything this season. You think for them to be 2-0 that these perimeter players are just making these huge plays and things like that, and they're really not. It's really been all Saquon Barkley. So I feel like that'll be the game plan all week for the Cowboys, and that's why I think you're going to see Micah Parsons more at linebacker in this game. Because if they can contain Saquon Barkley, I think they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, Galladay played 2 snaps against last week in their win, and then Kadarius Toney only played 7 in the opener.
And you know what it is, too, with that? And you've seen it a little bit on Twitter over the last few days. It's also, when that stuff's going on and you're in New York, it's way more magnified. That everyone's coming to your locker, whether you're Toney, whether you're Galladay, asking them about, how do you feel about not being a bigger part of the offense? And should you be more, what's going on here and things like that. And there's only so much that you can bite your tongue when people are continuously coming up and asking you about that stuff. Obviously the biggest, the media market. So it'll be interesting to see how they keep that together. But to answer your original point, I think the best thing they got going for him is Brian Daboll. I think that was a great hire. And I think that's the best head coach they've had in a while. And so Cowboys fans should be scared of that a little bit, because I think they got a good one, and I think they'll be there for a while.
Thank you very much, John. John Machota, theathletic.com, again featured today by theathletic.com because of some of the stats on what Mike Parsons has done. Before we go to the top 5, Aaron Judge, I want to go back to this, okay? He has 15 games remaining. He has 60 home runs. With 15 games left in the 2001 season, which was pushed back a couple of 3 weeks because of 9/11, Barry Bonds, through 147 games, 140, I think he had 58.
Oh.
Here's what he did, though. Hit 3 in a game against Colorado, hit 2 against San Diego, and 2 against the Dodgers in the last weekend. So he went off. But with the same amount of games left, and I might be reading this a little bit off, but he had 58 home runs and then hit 15 home runs in his last 11 games.
Yeah, that was a crazy, ridiculous year. Of course, we know, what the reason was for Barry's change. The good Lord. No, it was steroids, but it was, that was an unbelievable run. I mean, those years of 98, 99, 2000, 2001 of the home runs and all that was going on was great for baseball, while also being bad for baseball under the surface. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll see. I don't know if anybody's going to let Aaron Judge do that. Like, I was surprised back then. Like, why? I mean, they're intentionally walking him all year long. Why are these teams enjoying watching Barry Bonds hit home runs off him? Just walk him.
I don't remember the playoff situation that they were in. They might have been chasing a playoff. They might have been playing other teams that were playing to get into playoffs, too, that same year. That could have had something to do with them trying to pitch to him. But most of the time, people just intentionally walked him because it was a smart thing to do. That's just a stat. I was like wondering how far behind the pace. He's basically almost right on the pace, in fact, slightly ahead, but he could also not get anything else. But he's on the verge of, again, tying the American League record held by former Yankee Roger Maris. The top 5 just around the corner. This is 365 Sports.
I had my second tennis lesson today with Joe Rosa at Breaker Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive, and it was fantastic. I have 2 lessons. It's been great. And if you are an adult that is looking to get into tennis and thinks, oh, man, I only played when I was younger, but I liked it, but I don't really know where to get back in. I don't know where to go. I don't know what's good quality. Well, go to Joe at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. Britt's got the youth program on lock, but Joe with the adult program also doing a great job. I was there taking a lesson today. It's simple. It gets back into it. I played tennis all my youth, but then stopped for a while. He's got me back in. I'm feeling confident after 2 lessons. He's going to bring you along at your pace, whether you are someone like me who is, a medium level, player at tennis or a total novice and beginner. He can do that with you at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. Go see Joe. I promise you'll have a great time. You'll be in great shape. You'll have fun working out, playing tennis at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online, pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 questions for George Kliavkoff. And I have a lot, but the 5 after his comments the other day, really, I mean, I've been thinking about it. Levi put out a tweet that people responded to about something I said yesterday, and I do kind of want to dive into it a little bit more with you guys before we put it to bed and move on to the next college football issue tomorrow. But number 5, why have they not tried to add teams? And why not try to copy the Big 12's playbook? And this might not be him. He might want to, but the other teams that are investigating a place. So I'm a little curious as to why.
How can you add teams, though, if you don't know who you are?
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, why
the
not?
Big 12 made a move knowing that they could add 4 teams, not to overcome the loss of the money, the revenue, whatever. But they knew they had to add teams.
They had to. They had no choice. They were not going to be an 8-team conference or a 12-team with the new conference or 8-team before adding the 4. They had no choice. I mean, the whole thing was going to fall apart. The Pac is still at 10, no matter what. And, Paul, I would just say, I don't know that they haven't tried to add teams. That would be my first thing is, who's to say that they haven't? I mean, we're speculating every day on, anytime Brett Yormark says something about just even the West Coast, we're like, who's he talking to? So, maybe George Kleofkoff's not as outright, public about what they're doing, but I think those 2 teams that you have right there, I am sure that they have been vetted and have been talked to. And if they haven't, then the conference deserves to fall apart and never be spoken about again, because to not have talked to those teams at this point would be doing a massive disservice to the entire entity that you're presiding over. So I think that they probably have. I just think, too, is you're in the middle of a TV negotiation. So, if you're talking to, let's say, ESPN, and you tell them, what do you think about SMU and Boise? I'm sure you're getting some feedback back, but if SMU and Boise, and the answer is from ESPN, well, we'll give you $500,000 more per team, is that worth it?
Yeah. Is
that worth it? Or is it just basically putting a Band-Aid because as soon as Arizona sees that, they're going $500,000 and we're adding SMU and San Diego State, and I can go to the Big 12 right now and make $5 million more and have better games. I'm going to go to the Big 12.
Okay, if you're San Diego State and SMU and you've actually been offered, you've said yes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, my question was maybe being more outward about it, like the Big 12 was. They're not.
Why have you not?
Why have you not been more active about at least just
because maybe
opening
most
the doors?
of their time has been spent on making sure that they still have who they have left?
I think it's the TV negotiations. I think that's a massive part of it.
But part of this I also think is you also need to make sure that there is a conference even if teams do leave, which is what the Big 12 was trying to do is look, if we add these other teams, at least there's a conference if the door still stays open.
No matter what fan bases, media, speculation, or whatever else, after Texas and Oklahoma left, or whatever fan bases thought they had more value or their school had, the Big 12 converged. They met. They all looked at each other and said, yeah, you might get this call. You might get this call. We are going to die if we're not all in this right now together.
Well, and the problem with the Pac,
they've been able to do that with the Pac-12.
The problem with the Pac that's different too is you lost Oklahoma and Texas, and I know KU fans said they're going to the Big Ten next, and
Which is what I was just talking about.
Yeah, Iowa State fans said they're going to the Big Ten. Well, they were not going to the Big Ten, and they were not. And unlike that with the Pac-12, is they lost to USC and UCLA, who most people probably wouldn't have thrown into the mix at all to begin with, and so those are out. But now you're still unsure whether or not Oregon and Washington are even going to be there. You don't know if Cal's going to be there. You don't know if Stanford's going to be there based on just the speculation. So I think TV negotiations combined with the fact that your next 4 brands in line could also be leaving if they get an invite at any moment. That's just a lot of instability. So, I'm sure SMU and San Diego State, for example, would jump on that. But, man, there's a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yeah. Number 4, if UCLA is doing so well in this league, where did the debt come from? Was this just them being totally irresponsible? I mean, I know that part of it's not the Pac-12's fault, it's UCLA's fault, but again, if they're doing well, why is there $62 million in debt? If the Pac-12 works so well for them, why are they in this hole? Why do they feel they had to make this decision to get more money per year to help them crawl out of this cavern of debt they're in?
Are they in
COVID-19?
Yeah.
Coaches' salaries.
Yeah. And Tony knows all about those numbers. Some of the things he sends at times, I don't always agree with him, but he said that UCLA's fine. I know there's the story that they're highly in debt and they don't take state funds and all that. But, yeah, that story wasn't just out there just because. They have some. They have some.
$62.5 million in debt.
They have a hole to dig out of.
Yeah, they got a hole to dig out of, and they're not. The stadium. They've got a stadium that's too big for them, and it's hard to fill, even when they're good, which isn't very often in football. So again, if you're going to get pummeled and nobody's going to go, you might as well go to a place that gives you a bunch of cash. I mean, that's just how it's going to be.
Yep.
Number 3, I would like to know who did the math for UCLA's travel bills. It says that they're just going to break even when they're going to be making $50 million more a year, and they're going to spend all of that on travel? I don't think so. They're probably going to spend most of it on their debt.
Yeah, you're talking what Kleofkoff.
Yeah, Kleofkoff said that. So consider the source. I think I said this yesterday. I don't know how the numbers add up to where all of a sudden just a little bit more travel, and I know going to Rutgers is more than a little bit than compared to like Tucson, but that doesn't add up to $75 million or whatever it is, that it all just squares away to being the same in the long run. Like, those are just the most pricey jets of all time, or he's full of it. And I think he's probably full of it to some extent, because why is he going to polish this up for the schools that are leaving? He's going to try to make it look bad on them. And I think that he's been sort of maybe kind of successful in doing that, maybe. I don't know. I think most people are like, yeah, we totally get why they're leaving. But, I'd like to see his calculator work on the travel evening out to basically just being back at zero. That makes zero sense with the money that's going to be coming in from the Big Ten.
Yeah. Tony just texted me, Dennis, from the COVID year, and very high spending on the massive number of non-revenue sports that they run at Olympic quality levels.
Well, thank you for watching us, Mr. Altamore.
Yeah. And I could say this, though, and just on the other thing is...
I knew he'd know.
Look, the other thing UCLA needs to do is they've got a lot of gold medals going out the door there, and that's great, but they've got to make those gold medals work for them financially. Because clearly right now they're not, right? If you're getting all these gold medals, so, yeah, to me, you just got to make them work. And part of it might be just bad, which is why you go to the Big Ten, because you got to try something new, because it's not working this way. Number 2, is going all in with Amazon the best way for people to see your games? Now, look, you might be able in the Pac-12 to get maybe a slightly larger TV deal if Amazon really, really wants it. But is that going to be good in the long term? Because there's a lot of content on that app. There's a lot of stuff. And are people going to go there and see it when we know that networks still matter? When the biggest games are on the network, I think part of that is just to scare maybe ESPN into doing it. But if you don't even know what your league's going to be, how scared is ESPN going to be? Mm-hmm. When you might wind up doing this, having to do this because you've played this hand. I think you have to have a streaming component. I think it'd be cool for a league to get on Amazon or Apple, at least partially. But I don't think outside the NFL going all in with, and the NFL's not all in, they're doing one game a week. So doing all your stuff on one network, I don't think that's going to be great.
A network that they have now.
An app.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that they would do that under any circumstance. I mean, we've already heard about the late night windows. I mean, I think they want a streaming component, but I don't think by any means they're going to be exclusive to Amazon or anything along those lines. That would just make, might as well just start. Some people already have, but go ahead and give me a shovel too, and I'll put the next 2 feet that we need to just go ahead and get this grave done, because that would be the death of that conference. There's not enough people lining up to just watch exclusive Amazon games the entire season. I don't care how many subscribers that app has. That's not when the brands that bring in most of those eyeballs are in some cases not going to be there in a couple years, like the LA schools, or may not be. Like, that's the part of this is who is in the Pac-12 in 2 years. Until we know that, it's all this is kind of fuzzy. You could sell it somewhat with Oregon and Washington a part of it. That's certainly going to give you a much better shot than without them. So if they've got them, then yeah, I could see this being a component. But no way you go exclusive streaming. That'd be death.
Yeah, and that's I think that's one of those things you throw out there to see if they how the networks react to you. But yeah, you can't do that. And number 1, do you really think no one else is leaving? I know that's what he has to say, but does he really think that?
I don't take anything from Kleofkoff on that as factual in any way, because he's got to say what he's got to say. But I really don't know. I think it flips like every day. I think that there's certainly reasons to believe that Kevin Warren still has more geography in mind. But I also understand the people on the other side who think that it's settled down. All I know is I'm careful when it's settled down, because that's normally when something happens.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I guess as long as there's a bunch of scuttlebutt and nothing really moves, then maybe you can rest assured. But as soon as it gets too quiet, then that's probably when we're going to hear the big pop of a balloon out west or in a few years on the East Coast. I think that still remains to be seen, honestly. But I know there's not a whole lot of options out there. That's the thing. Yeah. There's only so many options until to the ACC in a few years. So maybe it is settled. But again, I take it with a grain of salt.
I don't know Yeah, I mean, you got to say what you got to say. And look, I think 2030 is the year to really look at it when their contract comes up again, when they're renegotiating again, because if in 2030 the 16-team league has worked out so well for the Big Ten that they're like, heck yeah, and USC and UCLA are like, hey, if we didn't have to always go to Minnesota, that'd be great. Like if we could go to Washington, we're all for that. If you guys want Stanford, we're behind you. Then maybe I think that could happen. But I don't think it's going to be in this cycle. But then again, it could change just like that, because if things go south, things go south. I mean, nobody thought it was going to happen in the first place, and it did.
Yeah, I mean, for them right now, I know they got to focus on the TV deal, but I'd be focused on the fact that it's only been 3 weeks, but the conference actually has some pretty fun storylines, and that's from LA to Utah to Seattle to Corvallis and beyond. I mean, they've got some fun teams through the first 3 weeks. I know some of that will subside and some of that will gain even more steam, like a USC certainly. But they've got a good little football conference at the moment. Certainly the most exciting it feels like it's been in a long time. So they need to take full advantage of that, however that's even possible to do.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Craig Smoak, also Jack, Levi, Emery, Jacob, Garrett, the full meal deal from everybody. I'm David Smoak. Our sponsors are amazing. We appreciate them. We're back again tomorrow at 3. Don't forget tonight, Sports Tonight on the CW channel at 10:30. Baylor pregame on Saturday, 9 o'clock prior to Iowa State on KWTX and 365 Sports. Thank you, all of you who participate and are involved. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.